He didn't have a last name. His whole identity was wrapped up in that one word, like it was the only thing he really had to call his own. Nobody ever actually used his real name. Back when he was a kid, people just clowned on him and stuck him with names like trash. As he got older, they stopped calling him names and just started offering him weed, then started calling him bastard instead. By the time he was grown, people straight up feared him. They started calling him things like venomous and spear demon, names that showed just how dangerous he'd gotten. After stacking up win after win, his reputation was basically untouchable. He pulled it off and got crowned Spear King. He'd never had it easy. His whole life was basically survival mode. Clothes, just old rags, food. Most days he was stuck with nothing but one potato to get by. He just took it all and kept moving. The battlefield was the only spot he ever really felt like he belonged. Now, standing in front of a whole new crew of enemies, he got that familiar rush, ready to see what would happen next. He caught all the nervous whispers around him. Some of them were straight up calling him a monster, while others were convinced he wasn't even human, just some kind of demon. Then one guy seemed to figure out who he was and started freaking out, trying to guess if this was really the Spear King everyone had been talking about. Everyone there was clearly scared, but you could tell they were hoping for a way out too. They kept hyping each other up, knowing they had the upper hand just by sticking together. All they had to do was take him out, and the win was basically theirs. When they heard the signal, everyone rushed forward together like they were all locked in on the same goal. Just as their swords got close, disappeared right in front of them. The next second he was suddenly up in the air, flying right over their heads. He drove his spear straight down, taking out the other guy with just one hit. The dude dropped to the ground right after. Someone else showed up ready to start problems. Everyone around started yelling at him, wishing the worst. Meanwhile, couldn't stop replaying everything in his head. He started thinking about whether he was just built this way, or if picking up the skills to take someone out was something that happened as he grew up, when it came down to it. Honestly, the truth didn't really change anything. What stuck around was what counted. He'd ended so many lives with it before. He only had one spear with him. He'd always made it through. He couldn't escape the way the dead seemed to haunt him non-stop. Back then, he was just the kid everyone called useless. He didn't make it out of the fight alive. That was supposed to be where his story ended, but life had other plans. Maybe something just got out of order. He switched things up. Who should been long gone and just a memory wasn't where anyone expected. He ended up coming back to life in a whole new world. The sun was out and was just there, caught up in his own world. He was back, just sitting under a tree. He looked down at his hands, just sitting there, not saying anything. That's when it hit him. He wasn't some baby in a crib, but straight up a teenager. He noticed an old mirror just lying there on the ground. He checked himself out in the mirror, making sure everything looked right. His mind drifted back to when he was just grinding as a helper, keeping it. Off in the distance, something caught his eye. He heard people yelling and instantly looked over. Turned around and spotted the forest bandits going at it with the Howling Tiger escort crew. The fight was intense, with both sides really throwing down. The escorts started yelling back and forth, totally locked in on guarding their stuff no matter what. The bandits weren't backing down either, throwing hands and going all out to get what they came for. Hung back in the shadows, just watching everything go down. In his head, he couldn't help but notice how wild it was that his first view after getting a second shot at life was, of all things, another war zone. Out of nowhere, he heard someone calling from behind. One of the bandits spotted him and started smirking, clearly not taking him seriously. The guy basically looked at and figured there was no way he was an escort master. He just saw some random kid who probably only carried bags for others. Stared him down with that icy look he always had. Right away, he knew this guy was one of those bandits that usually hid out in the woods, waiting to jump anyone passing through. Even though the bandit tried to act all tough, could see right through it. The bandit's hands were shaking and he looked like he couldn't move. Could tell right away these guys weren't pros. The bandits didn't care if it was just a rookie or actually the boss. Since he rolled with the escort crew, he was automatically a target in their eyes. The man was totally locked in, swinging his spear all over the place, looking like he was ready to take someone out, though. He dodged the hit like it was nothing. Staying cool, he noticed the enemy was way too easy to read. He spots the weapon. He moved fast and jammed the spear forward. The bandit dropped, staring at the man, totally not believing what just happened. Started talking, even though nobody remembered what he'd done in the war before he got a second chance at life. He still had all his martial arts skills, and honestly that was enough for him right now. Still, the truth hung over him, weighing on his mind way more than he liked. Remembered how everyone else pretty much hated the martial arts move he used. He used to call it straight up evil, but now stuck like this he had to count on it. He just left the guy stuck on the spear, didn't even look back and walked off like it was nothing. His brain barely had time to process everything before another bandit showed up out of nowhere. He jumped out from his spot and fired off an arrow with his bow, catching everyone off guard. The shaft smacked right on the head. The bandit just lost it and started laughing, acting like he'd finally won and could chill for real now. He was laughing, but that stopped real quick when suddenly rushed at him. Was standing there totally alive, eyes locked on him with a look that could kill. He let the guy know straight up that he'd already seen the ambush coming. Didn't hold back, calling him out for not making sure his enemy was actually done for. He made it clear, messing up like that in a fight could get you finished every time. Just like that, spear went straight through him, and he was gone in an instant. He grabbed his weapon and got ready. Had both bodies stacked on his spear now. For the first time, the weight actually made sense to him. He watched the Howling Tiger escort squad getting worked by the bandits. He caught himself remembering the good old days, kinda smiling to himself at how things used to be. He walked onto the battlefield, staying calm and steady with every step. His weapon was still, but the bodies hanging from it made everyone freeze. Both the bandits and the escorts just stared, totally thrown off by what they saw. People started whispering, freaked out, wondering what kind of guy could even pull this off. Some of them honestly thought there was no way he was just a regular person. Things got even more tense when their boss showed up. Everyone in the area heard the bandit leader showing up loud and clear, making sure everyone knew he ran things in the forest. Smirked, pretty hyped to see if he could actually take this guy on. The leader just grinned back, basically saying he was about to wipe that look right off's face. He suddenly whipped out this huge axe and chucked it straight at him. Dodged the attack like it was nothing, moving so chill it almost looked like he was making fun of the whole thing. The bandit leader was losing it, yelling at him and throwing out insults for dodging the attack, but deep down the leader's confidence was falling apart. Straight up tossed a dead body his way. Looked at the guy and thought his strength was solid, but honestly that was about it. With one clean move, sliced the guy straight down the middle with his spear. Right after, his voice came through loud and clear. He broke it down, showing everyone what a real attack was supposed to be. Everyone watching just froze, eyes wide. Some people started freaking out, saying he just took out their leader in one hit. Others were whispering, calling him a monster. The whole crowd got spooked fast. Checked out his weapon and wasn't happy, it just felt way too light for him. He wasn't having it, so he decided to do something about it. He slid the leader's split-up body onto the spear with the rest, checking it out for a second. Now that the weight was even on both sides, he was actually kind of satisfied with how it turned out. The bandits who made it just started to freak out. The group totally lost it and scattered everywhere, yelling for everyone to fall back. Some of them even started freaking out, saying the guy in front of them couldn't be real. Checked out the bodies he was carrying. After a moment he started to smile a little, finally getting what was going on. In his head he kept thinking about how whenever blood and demons clashed in a fight, it always brought out the thing guys hated most, the colored mountain bandits. Somehow time had just rolled back a whole decade. Right there on the mountain, the spear demon showed up again. Couldn't help but grin, realizing he actually kinda liked it. One of the guards started yelling, making sure none of the bandits slipped away. In the background, the fight just kept going, weapons smashing together and guys yelling everywhere. The guards started yelling, fired up because the wind was backing them up. In the middle of all the chaos, they made it clear they weren't letting any bandits get out alive. Just froze, eyes locked on the fight. He noticed something off to the side and stopped, locked in, trying to figure out what was up. On the battlefield, someone yelled so loud it turned heads, and you could just tell they were full of themselves and mad at the same time. The bandits started going off at the bounty hunters, basically demanding to know why they just took out his crew like it was nothing. He basically called them out, letting them know if they had guts, they should step up and face him straight on. Stared at the guy, instantly picking up that this wasn't just some random dude. Out of nowhere, he caught these whispers from spirits hanging around, telling him that the guy fighting hard was actually Ego, their old leader. The spirits basically pleaded with to get Ego to join them, saying their boss was next level strong. Squinted, taking in what he'd just heard, and knew right away this guy was on a totally different level from the usual crowd. The spirits kept pushing and finally said yes, letting them know he'd make their wish happen. He smirked, looking confident, and made it clear that Ego II was about to get taken out completely. Kept going off on the escorts, totally losing it as he swung his weapon around and laughed like a maniac. He was all in, yelling for them to just drop, but then out of nowhere, someone called out his name from behind. He stopped dead in his tracks, turned around with a confused look, and tried to figure out who would just call him like that out of nowhere. Right then and there, went for it, just managed to block the hit, but it still slammed him down hard. He stared up, eyes wide, trying to catch his breath, frustrated and wanting answers about who was. Just stood there not saying a word. His face stayed blank, totally impossible to read, like he was locked in his own head. Ego froze, totally thrown off by the way he was acting. He couldn't believe what he was seeing had actually lifted some guy up, holding him on his spear. For a second, Ego just stood there, mind racing, trying to process how wild things had just gotten. The ghosts of the bandits started calling out to Ego, asking why he was the only one still standing and trying to pull him over to their side. When he heard them repeating his name, Ego just lost it. Panic took over and he couldn't hold it together. He couldn't hold back anymore. Tears just ran down his face while he yelled out, calling a demon and desperately hoping someone would come save him. The spirits started whispering again. They wanted him to join up with them, before Ego even had a chance to dip out. Didn't waste a second, he moved quick and took the guy's head clean off. The body just dropped, no fight left in it. Stared down at him, totally unfazed. In his head, started thinking back on the move he'd just pulled. He remembered how saying someone's name 3 times could basically send their soul straight to the underworld. No matter what, once you started those 3 calls, the person was getting pulled in. It kind of hit him that he hadn't done this in a while. Late at night, couldn't stop thinking about his past. Back when he was a young soldier out in the middle of some rough, rocky mountains, everything felt different. Those old memories just wouldn't leave him alone. He tried to pull himself up the steep cliff, but every move felt way tougher than he expected. His arms burned and his grip kept slipping, making the whole thing a real grind. He was totally wiped out, barely catching his breath as he blamed his lousy luck. Frustration got to him and he just let it out, annoyed that all the tough scouting jobs landed on the new guy. After dragging himself up to a ledge, he slumped down, breathing hard, and started grumbling about the military. He couldn't stop thinking about the promises they made, like he'd never go hungry if he signed up. But honestly, it felt just like the rough days when he was a slave. While he was sitting there, something off started creeping up behind him, and this heavy, threatening energy settled right on his back. His eyes snapped open wide. Right away, his instincts kicked in and told him something was up. His mind started racing, trying to figure out what was going on. Nobody knew for sure. Maybe it was a tiger, maybe something from the other side. Whatever showed up, it definitely wasn't normal. He was dead set on not turning around. His jaw tightened as he kept moving forward. He kept his eyes straight ahead, telling himself again and again that turning around was basically game over. No way was he about to get taken out here for nothing. Still, someone started talking right behind him. Just stopped cold, sweat rolling down his face while he listened. The voice started messing with his head, asking why he kept fighting so much when his life wasn't really worth anything. It threw out the idea that maybe taking a wild risk was his shot at flipping his whole situation. Felt his confidence drop, and he ended up turning around to face whoever was talking. He wanted to know what made those words worth trusting. Right in front of there was this old guy who just started laughing when stood his ground. Then the man wanted to know what's name was. Paused for a second, then said his own name. The old man leaned in, wanting to know what he just heard. Got louder, making sure everyone knew his name was. The old man leaned in, not letting it go, and asked again. Started to answer, but he was clearly on edge. Before he could even wrap things up, the old man suddenly darted forward faster than anyone expected. He shot forward, closing the gap in a flash, and grabbed by the throat. Hit the ground hard, blood dripping from his mouth while pain shot through him. He couldn't even process how fast the guy moved. It was like his brain just glitched trying to keep up. The old man stood over him, voice icy and in control, laying down the rule. If ever wanted to take someone out, he had to ask their name 3 times first. No matter what they said, this move meant he could take out anyone. Right then, got it. This guy was the one who had given him that crazy power, his own master. He recognized the guy right away, and his stomach dropped. It was the blood demon everyone in the martial world feared most. The memory slipped away and snapped back to reality, taking out bandits one after another with his spear, barely slowing down. While everything around him was chaos, he spotted something that just didn't sit right. He could think straight, like everything finally made sense. He realized the power gave him wasn't all there, it felt unfinished. The demonic energy inside his core was starting to take hold. That stuff was supposed to mess him up and mess with his head, but right now, he actually felt more locked in than ever. He locked in. He let his aura flow through him, then. He finally got it back in his last life. He totally spaced on it once he joined the army. Back when he was a kid, he picked up the Meow tribe's breathing trick. Thanks to that, even with all this demonic power inside him, he managed to stay clear-headed and not lose himself. He noticed how weird it was and couldn't shake the thought. His master's advice just kept replaying in his head. He had to fully get the hang of this demonic power, or else his mind was gone for good. Had this small grin on his face, thinking about how would react if he ever found out the secret. Right then, someone called out from behind him. Spun around and spotted the escort. The crew from the Howling Tiger Escort Bureau showed real gratitude. They knew he just pulled them out of a sketchy spot, and you could tell they meant it when they thanked him. There was a young woman standing out in front of everyone. She checked out, keeping her guard up, but also kind of impressed. Her mind was going a mile a minute. She could tell right away, just standing there, gave off this crazy intense vibe. Earlier, he'd taken out all those bandits like it was nothing, barely breaking a sweat. She made up her mind right then that she wasn't about to let him walk away. Meanwhile, just straight up asked what she was after. She honestly had no clue why a guy like him was stuck doing basic convoy work at their place. Still, she wanted to know if he'd keep helping them out with his skills. Shut it down right away. The girl was caught off guard and started fumbling for words. She reached out, trying to hold him back. He just turned his back and let her know he was out if she didn't need anything else. Inside, she locked in on her decision. There was no way she was just gonna let him bounce. If he didn't want to team up on his own, she figured she'd have to make it happen herself. She reached into her pocket and held something out for him to see. In her hand was a gold token shining under the light. She let him know it had the Tiger Pit sex mark stamped right on it. The sect was kind of a big deal in Anhui, running the show for their enforcement squad. He could roll up with this token, and everyone would treat him like a VIP. She really wanted him to take it, hoping he'd see she was being real with him. glanced at the token in his hand. The words on it read, Tiger Pit Sect First Class Escort. For a second he just stood there, lost in thought as something from his past started to come back to him. He remembered the Tiger Pit Sect had a reputation for being straight up and trustworthy, but he couldn't forget what was coming. The whole group would just disappear in a few years, leaving nothing behind. It was honestly a rough ending for them. He took the token from her hand. Ika gave him a big smile and thanked him, looking pretty happy. She let him know they had to get back to their delivery job for now, but promised they'd swing by again to see him once they wrapped things up. She and her crew gave a quick bow before heading out. Just grabbed one of their horses, letting everyone know he'd be taking it for a bit. Freaked out and tried to stop him, saying that animal was way too wild. They'd only decided to keep it around for hauling stuff, not for anything else. Just hopped on the horse like it was nothing. The horse listened to him right away, no fuss at all. One of the escorts just stared, totally not expecting that, wondering how this wild horse suddenly started acting chill. Then out of nowhere, the horse did its business while walking, almost like it was showing respect to. And the rest of the group were honestly stunned, not sure how pulled that off. Let out a deep breath, clearly impressed. She couldn't help but think that for someone his age was seriously talented, especially with how easily he handled a horse. One of the other guards started messing with her, hinting that maybe she was catching feelings, since was good-looking, strong, and basically her ideal guy. She narrowed her eyes and pulled out her sword, staring the guy down hard. She called him out for disrespecting the person who helped them, basically asking if he was trying to get himself in serious trouble. The guard freaked, scrambling to say sorry and claiming he was just messing around. She slid her sword back into the scabbard, finally done with the fight. Her face turned serious while she told her guys what she'd just seen. She let them know she'd actually watched his spear skills herself. Some of the escorts started thinking he was probably from a well-known noble family who were all about spear fighting, but just disagreed quietly. She let him know this wasn't some random martial arts move, but straight-up military spear skills. Plus, could tell right away this guy was on a whole other level, way ahead of what you'd expect for someone his age. One of the guards was caught off guard, trying to figure out if it was serious. She was. In her mind, it made sense. Probably came from some top-tier military family and was out here grinding, leveling up after finishing his training. She paid close attention to how he acted, especially since he'd put his own life on the line for them. She was sure that if found out their sect was in trouble, he wouldn't just look the other way. Inside was desperate. She really hoped would come through and rescue the Tiger Pit sect before the Black sect took everything over. Clearly annoyed, glared at the horse and basically threatened it to behave or else. As he stood there, his thoughts started to wander back to the sect. He quietly wondered if the Tiger Pit sect was doing all right now. That led him to start thinking about one particular guy. He was ready. He found himself thinking about that guy again, curious about what his life was like these days. Thought back to when he first met the guy who became his closest friend after he joined the army in his last life. Was the one who always had his back like a real brother, and they went through everything together. The memory just hit him hard, clear as day. Back in the day was brand new to the squad. He sat down to grab some food, but before he even got a bite, an older soldier shoved him out of the way and started yelling, all because didn't hand over something first. The guy made it clear newbies had to give up their food to the no questions asked. If anyone tried to hold on to their meal, they were just asking to get beat up. Just stood there totally lost because he had no clue that rule even existed. Right before the bully could take things any further, someone else jumped in and interrupted. Was the one who spoke up. He didn't buy into the whole ranking thing, they all knew it was bogus anyway. Since just got here, that pretty much made the next newest guy. If someone's rations were up for grabs because of this so-called rule, then his would be on the line too. He joked around, asking if the bully wanted his too. That just made the guy snap and he rushed at him, ready to throw hands. But right as the punch was about to connect, a potato nailed him right in the forehead, had aimed perfectly and didn't miss. The guy doubled over from the pain and he started messing with him, daring him to eat it if he still had any teeth in his mouth. Right after, he didn't even pause. He rushed in and started landing punches, not letting up until the other guy's face was all messed up and swollen. Every hit came with a warning that coming back for more would be a huge mistake. He was totally fine with losing all his teeth if it meant winning. The bully just sat there, beat, barely able to make a sound. Was still frozen, not really processing what just happened. People warned him not to get involved, but just shrugged it off. He figured you gotta be strong to make it out here, and for him, that meant never backing down when it came to getting food. He chucked another potato his way, and just like that, that's how they met for the first time. From that point, didn't just see him as another guy in the squad. He started thinking of him as a real teammate. He was like a brother, connected to him by something deeper than just friendship, almost like destiny had set it up that way. Called himself and wanted to know his name, paused for a second then told him. Time kept passing. Then out of nowhere, while he was fighting just to stay alive on the battlefield, everything went sideways. This demon showed up out of nowhere and grabbed by the neck right at the cliff's edge. Freaked out and started yelling, ready to pop off a flare if didn't let go. Was struggling to breathe, but still managed to signal for him to get out of there fast. Just stared at them, barely cracking a cold grin like he didn't care at all. He let go of and just dropped down the side of the cliff. Had yelled out his name in total panic, but somehow luck was on his side. Grabbed onto a ledge just in time. He looked up and told him not to bother with the flare, saying he should just get out while he still had the chance. Wasn't done yet, he just let everyone know all chill that taking out wasn't on his to-do list for now. He had another idea in mind. He told them that if they found some kind of herb that could fix his injuries inside, he'd help them get strong enough to make it through. They just stared at each other, not saying a word. In his head, he knew they really didn't have any other option. They nodded, locking it in. Khufu looked pretty content, noticing that at least they still had that determined look in their eyes. Started showing them his secret moves. He told them about these things called unrestrained demons. Basically, when a tiger eats someone, their soul gets twisted and turns into a demon that has to serve whoever's in charge. These demons level up their boss by bringing in more people as sacrifices. His demonic move worked just like that. He took in the grudges from the dead to level up. They called it the art of the unrestrained demon, and it broke down into 3 main stages: compression, tempering, and transcendence. Each stage had 10 levels to grind through, starting at the first stage. Compression, he could push out demonic energy, almost like steam rising off his body, in the next moment. During tempering, his blood turned toxic. Whenever it spilled, it shot out like a red mist, looking wild and dangerous. Past that point was the final transcendence stage, and had already made it there, pushing through 4 whole levels. At that stage, stuff like good, evil, or even being demonic just didn't matter to him anymore. He told everyone to really lock in and remember what he taught, because it was the only way they'd make it. They have to head out to the front lines and just keep fighting non-stop. They started letting their grudges fuel them, hoping it would flip their whole fate. Was already lining up what they had to do next. The mission was to grab this rare 100-year-old snow ginseng. Was all in right away, no hesitation, but pushed back, saying that going after something like that was way out of their league right now. He asked Khufu to handle it instead. He helped them unlock their meridians with the herbs they already had, making sure they had the basics down before chasing after anything stronger. Thought it over for a bit, then decided to go with what he said. Wanted to open his meridians before anyone else. Didn't really want to, but kept pushing him until he finally gave in. Going second was never easy, and he knew it. They went back and forth for a bit, but eventually they both nodded, making it official between them. He gave a quick fist bump, showing he was locked in and ready to go. Things took a rough turn for. Later on, he was out in the pouring rain, barely holding himself up. Arrows were stuck in him and blood dripped behind as he struggled to breathe. Even then, he kept a tight grip on the herbs he'd picked. He kept telling himself things would finally be all right since his brother and his master were going to make it. But as soon as he walked back into the hideout, lightning flashed and suddenly there he was, their master, standing right in front of them. He was sitting there, legs crossed like he was meditating, but his head was gone, just chilling on the ground in front of him. Someone was standing right behind him, watching the whole thing go down. He stood there, covered in blood with a sword in his hand. Had this small, quiet smile on his face. Froze, hands shaking so bad he let the hymns fall. He dropped to the ground, and someone moved fast to catch him before he hit the floor. He was shaking, barely holding it together as he needed answers right then. His voice came out super quiet, like he could barely even speak. Khufu never planned on letting them survive. He just made his move early so they wouldn't get killed later. Froze as he noticed his meridians were totally wrecked, and all that demonic energy he relied on was just gone. He couldn't stop crying but stayed close, doing his best to calm him down. Taking out one old guy who was already barely hanging on didn't mean much to him. He used up the last bit of energy he had and finally let everyone know who he really was. He was the only one left after the Tiger Pit sect got wiped out. Once mentioned to him that he used to work for the Tiger Enforcement Bureau for a short time, and said the people in charge there were actually decent. He always talked about his parents with real respect, so over time he started to feel like family. Even though he tried to smile, his voice shook a little. Deep down, he was just grateful they'd met. He hoped that if the chance ever came up, things would work out somehow. His mind replayed that moment, then it just broke apart. All that stuck was the need to get revenge. Now in the present, chilled in the middle of a packed spot, noise everywhere. Inside, he was locked in, ready for anything. This time around, he made a promise to himself. There was no way he was letting that grudge even start. He was set on saving the clan from getting wiped out, and even though he'd already bailaid out the Tiger Enforcement Bureau and fixed their money problems, it didn't feel like he'd done enough. He knew he had to push even harder, so he headed straight for Anhui. He got off his ride right in front of a small manor. He walked up to someone nearby. He casually tossed out a question, keeping it chill. The guy snapped and punched him, clearly not cool with being talked to like that. Didn't waste any time, he just took control and had the guy beat in seconds. He kept swinging on the guy until the dude was completely out of it. He was down on his knees, eyes all puffy and bruised up, wanting to know what was really going on. spotted the manor up ahead and wondered if this was where the Tiger Pit sect was based. The guy with him nodded, letting him know he'd found the right place. Wasn't done yet, he wanted more info, so he kept pushing for answers. He wanted to know if the people in charge were Jenin and his wife. Once again the guy nodded, then just came out and asked if their son was, but the man straight up said no, which totally threw off. Just reached up and grabbed his own collar, kind of stunned by what just happened. He wanted answers, plain and simple. The guy, kind of on edge, tried to clear things up. He said he'd totally gotten it wrong about his wife never had a son. They actually just had one kid, that's it. It was his daughter. Took a step back, totally thrown off. His head spun as it finally clicked. The name he always thought was his old bro's, turns out it actually belonged to a girl. Was a woman, not the guy he remembered. Just sat there mind blown by what he found out. The idea kept replaying in his head, almost like it was trolling him. Being a woman, it sounded wild, but he couldn't deny it. It was right there in front of him, impossible to ignore. He ran his hand through his hair, clearly annoyed while trying to figure out what to do next. He knew showing the gold token would get him straight into the Tiger Pit sect, no questions asked. That would let him see what was really going on. But making a move like that now would mess up what he wanted to do later. He needed to find a different way in. Right then, the door flew open, and someone yelled his name from across the room. Some guy came at him, yelling and looking mad. He started calling out for just showing up out of nowhere after being MIA and said he couldn't be trusted. Apparently was supposed to clean up the horse poop but just dipped. The guy grabbed by the collar, yanking him in close. He stormed over, clearly pissed, wanting answers about where everyone else was. Without waiting, he grabbed him and pulled him inside. While all this was going down, just stood back, not saying a word. He realized this guy thought he was some random homeless kid he was supposed to look after, but honestly that mix-up was actually working out for. In the stable, the guy stood tall, clearly proud of himself. His name was Wu, and he ran the stables for the Tiger Pit sect. He kept his directions straightforward. Just had to deal with the manure and feed, but only when the guy was watching him. Wu pointed out that this job was way better than being out on the streets, and said he'd already gone over all the rules with a couple days ago. Just shrugged it off, saying he had no clue, not really bothered at all. Wu started getting annoyed. He checked out, kind of wondering if the kid just didn't get it. Like, not only did forget stuff all the time, but he also had the guts to talk back. Wu made sure remembered he was the one eating scraps and crashing in the stables, and that honestly the sect could have sent him packing at any time. The only reason was even there was because the leader felt bad for him when he was astray. So Wu made it clear, just because the job was tough didn't mean could just dip. Just wanted to get his work done right. He really couldn't care less. He quickly looked somewhere else, turning his eyes away right then. Out of nowhere, one of the horses started freaking out and kicked hard, nailing Wu. He hit the ground hard, grabbing his knee because the pain was just too much. Stared, eyebrows scrunched, trying to figure out why the horse just lost it out of nowhere. A smug laugh rolled out from the side, catching everyone's attention. It was a young master standing there all confident, making it clear to everyone that the horse was actually next level, straight up top tier. He bragged about how much he dropped on it, said it was enough to buy a mansion. But even with all that cash, it still wasn't easy to handle. One of the guys next to him mentioned that a stable boy already got hurt trying to deal with it. The young master just brushed it off, barely caring about what happened. To him, stable boys didn't matter. They were like dogs, only good for getting scraps as they left. The other stable hands hurried over to Wu, clearly annoyed because they recognized the guy who caused all the trouble. It was that kid from the main clan house, the one nobody really liked. Wu was on the ground, holding his leg and clearly in pain. In the back, stood there with his arms crossed, just watching everything go down, not missing a thing. Couldn't help but remember what had told him back in the day. Standing right in front of him was the guy who basically took down the Tiger Pit sect. Yeah, the smell of horse crap was everywhere, but honestly, what really had on edge was just seeing the clan around. Had this sneaky smile on his face, acting like just walking near the stable guys was enough to mess up his fresh outfit. Suddenly, someone with a serious tone cut in. The sect leader showed up fast after he heard someone new was here. The second he spotted, his face got serious, wanting answers about why was there. Right away, things started to get tense. And his buddy totally switched up how they acted, suddenly all polite and smiling as they greeted him. Started calling his father-in-law and said he was just there to see his future wife. He gave a sly grin, making it clear he was talking about. His face tightened up and you could tell he was mad. He straight up refused to admit he ever agreed to that marriage. Kind of agreed that for now this was the case, but he made it clear he was just waiting for it to turn 16, then the wedding was definitely happening. He even hyped it up, saying everyone around already knew about it and kids were literally making up songs about the whole thing. Straight up blamed him for starting rumors that could mess up his daughter's future. Just laughed it off, acting like he was joking around. He tried to play it cool, saying his clan was way below the clan and would never even try something like that. His anger shot up fast, his eyes going wide as he got ready to go after the kid who was acting up. But things didn't get out of hand because something else happened first. A chill voice came through. A girl walked over, moving smooth and confident. And his lackey just stopped in their tracks, totally stunned by how good she looked. Their jaws basically hit the floor. showed up calm and confident. She made it clear there wasn't gonna be any engagement between their families. She basically told to quit worrying about her and go focus on someone else. Started freaking out, trying to warn her how rumors could mess things up for real. Just stared at him totally stone-faced, shutting him down right away. She was done with the conversation and made it clear she wasn't getting married, not to him or anyone from Clan Manor. She didn't look back, she just turned around and walked off with her dad. Just stood there watching them walk off, not even trying to hide how salty he was. He couldn't help but roll his eyes, thinking she was full of herself even though her sect was basically broke. His buddy asked what the plan was now but just shrugged it off, saying they were only here because the brothel was on the way. He realized the rumors were actually true. His servant even thought she looked way better than anyone had said online. His face switched up fast when he started talking about how obsessed he was. Everyone online kept saying was so good looking she could make countries go wild, and honestly he was all in on that. To him she was next level, like unreal beauty. She was basically stuck with a rough life if she didn't have any money or influence. She definitely stood out in the Tiger Pit sect, way too good looking for that place. If she could, she'd probably wish she'd been born somewhere else. But honestly, it didn't matter anymore since that messed up guy had already noticed her. Even his sidekick just shook his head, thinking she really didn't deserve all this. Let out this sly laugh, got on his horse, and told everyone they were heading straight to the brothel. He got up on his horse. He frowned when the beast just stood there, not budging at all. His buddy noticed something was off and asked what was up. He started to wonder if something was up with the horse. Out of nowhere, he noticed foam building up around the horse's mouth. The whole thing gave out, slamming hard onto the ground. Off in the distance, stayed out of sight. He stood there with the animal's liver in his hand. He remembered the fox claw move, the same one the vixen used. It worked out perfectly. He managed to get the liver without leaving any trace behind, so no one would ever figure out what happened to the horse. In his mind, it all came back to that guy. Was actually behind all of it. Thought back to when told him the real reason the Tiger Pit sect fell apart. It all went downhill because they got into a serious fight for power with Clan Manor. Now he could see that it had been calling the shots the whole time. Probably caught on to this way before he did. She always thought her looks just brought her problems. That's why she ended up burning her own face. Squeezed the liver tight in his hand, crushing it, and in that moment everything clicked. He finally got why she did what she did. He didn't hold back anymore. It was finally time to get payback for his sworn brother. He hopped the wall quick, landing smooth like he'd done it 100 times. From here on out, he wasn't just gonna sit around. He got up and decided it was time to do something. Later that night, he was over in Anhui province. Made his way down the street, barely lit by a few weak streetlights. He kept walking until he showed up at a shop that sold farm tools. He stopped right at the doorway, taking a second before stepping in. He thought to himself how it had been forever since he'd last been there. He walked in. An old guy with gray hair and a beard stood at the corner, looking tired but still sharp. He wore a long, worn-out coat that had definitely seen better days. Even though he looked like he'd been through a lot, something about him felt solid, like he wasn't someone you'd mess with. On the floor sat a guy missing his right arm and leg, downing drink after drink. He eyed, clearly not trusting him, and tried to figure out what this random dude wanted. Just told him his name. The man barely reacted, acting like he'd never heard of, said he was done with all that and basically told to leave him alone. Just brushed the guy off and dropped himself onto this wooden block, not even bothered. He asked the old man for a hammer, but the dude just laughed at him. Sounded totally serious, even though the other guy wasn't sure at first. He laid out exactly what he wanted, 17 sun, no more no less. This thing was about the size of 4 suns around, didn't even weigh as much as 10 jin, and its head was just a perfect sphere. When the old man spotted it, he just stopped in his tracks, totally thrown off, and then you could see him switch up and get all serious. He pointed out that the hammer was basically useless for even simple stuff like nailing. Stared back serious, and let him know he wasn't planning to use it for that anyway. The old man wanted to know if there was anything more. Put in an order for 2 weapons, each measuring about 18.5 sun long. He made sure they got wrapped in crocodile leather and wasn't settling for anything less than a solid heavy build. When someone asked if he wanted a sword, axe, or spear, he just went with the spear. The old man picked up a stick and took a hard swing at the wall. He told them this was his top weapon, and that making the blade razor sharp would take a whole day. Was cool with it. He also wanted some small, sharp weapons. The old man brought his stick down hard on the wooden block where was sitting, showing everyone his. There were secret spots packed with sharp iron spikes. Checked them out, looking pretty satisfied with what he saw. He decided right then he was going to grab every single one. When someone asked where to drop them off, just said he'd grab them himself. The old man realized that getting something like that wouldn't come cheap. Tossed it out there, asking what it would take for him to go for it. The old man paused, not saying anything for a second, then started talking again. 3 days ago, he lost his daughter. He leaned in, getting way too close for comfort. He grabbed his shoulder, hoping there was some chance to get her back. Just stood there, not moving at all. He kept his eyes locked on, saying nothing. The old man stepped back, letting out a tired breath. He noticed right away how much smelled like blood. For a second, he actually thought might be a ghost. But when he realized was just a regular guy, there was really only one question left to ask. Stood up, ready to get revenge on the guys who took his daughter's life. He wanted to know who was behind it, so he asked. The old man told him straight up it was the Black Sect. Just nodded, not making a big deal out of it. He started to walk away, but the old man called out, letting him know there were actually 4 guys, and they were all from the Black Sect. Right then, everyone could tell was serious. He gave off this intense vibe, almost like you didn't want to mess with him. He didn't care who these guys were or what they called themselves. No matter what, he was ready to take every single one of them out. Right before heading out of the shop, stopped for a second and threw in one last thing he wanted. He wanted to know if the old blacksmith had any work gear and some poison too. The old man laughed, clearly not taking it seriously. He asked if he really believed a blacksmith would have something like that. Still, he didn't just brush off. The blacksmith reached into his pocket, grabbed something, and slid it across the floor in his direction. The old man grinned, kind of smug, and told him that the bear hide used to be from a beast that took out 74 people. He dropped a little jar next to it. He told everyone it had some kind of super dangerous poison from the Meow tribe, but then he straight up said he never even checked if it was the real deal. Dropped down, grabbed the jar, and twisted off the lid. He checked things out real quick and just straight up said the blacksmith got scammed. The old man just rolled his eyes like he already knew that was the case. Hung onto the jar, thinking it could come in handy, even if it wasn't the real deal. Before heading out, he let the old man know he'd be back tomorrow to pick up the weapons he'd asked for. He walked up to the door, but then spotted something by the wall that grabbed his attention. Bones were scattered everywhere in a messy pile. He paused, curious, and turned to the blacksmith to find out what was up with them. The old man said he used those tools back when he had to deal with animals on the farm. He wanted to know if anything was off with them now. Walked up, grabbed a bone, and tested the weight in his hand. He thought it was decent and figured he'd hang on to it for a bit until his order was done. He just grabbed it and took off, not even bothering to ask. The blacksmith just stood there watching as he walked off. He shook his head, thinking this kid was definitely not your average dude. For a second he actually questioned if it was some kind of ghost. He snapped out of it quick, muttering to himself. None of that mattered anymore. All he cared about was making sure the people who hurt his daughter paid. Didn't matter if it was human, ghost, or something else. He figured getting back at them was worth way more than his own life, even if it cost him everything. That night pulled up to the main gate of the Black Sect. 3 guards were posted right outside, barely visible under the weak moonlight. Someone in the group spotted a shadow moving closer in the dark and called out to whoever it was. He wanted to know who was trying to get in, making it clear that nobody was allowed past the spot while the meeting was going on. The guard caught a nasty whiff from whatever was holding and scrunched up his face, annoyed by the smell. He told to get lost and go somewhere else. When nobody answered, the guard got more irritated and said it again, louder this time, thinking the kid just didn't hear him. And right then, lifted the bone and swung it up. He swung hard and caught the guard right on the chin. He dropped right there, gone in a second. The 2 guards just stood there, completely stunned. One of them tried to say something about just holding a horse bone, but before they could even process what was happening, took them both out. No hesitation, just as brutal as before. He checked out the bone for a second, thinking it could actually come in handy. He stared at the sect compound, his eyes locked in and serious. The memory was still fresh. Last time, right before everything reset, most of the Black Sect managed to get away. Later, their comeback messed up his whole crew and left a mark he couldn't forget. After going through that tough situation before, he had their leaders' escape moves memorized. Now he was locked in, there was no way any of them were getting out. He was ready to take them all down, no exceptions. Kept that promise fresh in his head as he strolled right into the sect grounds. He didn't act stressed at all, just walked in like he belonged there. Every time he moved forward, more bodies dropped right in front of him. He took out anyone who got in his way, no hesitation, just straight up ruthless. He moved through the sect, silent and deadly, taking everyone by surprise like he was invisible. After a while, he stepped into the main hall. He was inside now. One of the guys stretched, clearly annoyed that something was messing with his nap. He glanced up, saw standing there, and just gave him that look, like he was nothing but some random kid causing trouble. He didn't take seriously at all and basically brushed him off. A different guy, way more chill, let know the sect leader was busy talking with someone. He pretty much made it clear that if stepped out of line, things would get handled fast. Stared these guys down, eyes ice cold. He was sizing them up in his head, checking if any of them were actually tough. Honestly, all 4 seemed just okay, nothing special, definitely not top-tier fighters. He figured right away these had to be the main guys from the Black Sect. Turns out he was spot on, they really were the 4 elites everyone talked about. One of the guys couldn't handle how cocky was acting and just rushed him. Didn't even flinch, he just went straight for it and kicked the dude hard right where it hurts. He hunched forward, clutching his stomach as pain hit him hard. Didn't waste any time, he charged straight at the next guy. He shoved his fingers right into the guy's eyes, messing up his vision for good. The other two pulled out their swords, getting ready to go in. Chucked it clear across the hall. The thing crashed right into one guy's face. He bounced right back, snatched it right out of the air. He suddenly lunged right at the target. A guy who couldn't see anything. With just one swing, he slammed the back of his head hard. He looked over at the guy he messed up earlier. The injured dude just lost it, yelling his head off. He promised himself that would pay and feel the same hurt he did. Just rolled his eyes and let out a quick laugh. He called out the guy for always grabbing stuff from everyone else, but totally losing it when someone took his. He couldn't help but think it was wild how the people who steal from others are usually the ones who freak out the most when it happens to them. He knocked over a vase with his foot and sent it flying right into the guy. Just watched, barely bothered, almost like he thought it was funny how stressed the dude was getting. He wasn't just after their stuff, he came to take something way deeper, their souls. He went for one last hit. He cracked the guy's skull, dropping him on the spot. Just another one of those elite dudes gone. His eyes went wide, not believing what he was seeing. He thought even the wildest fighters in the Black Sect never went this hard. Watching someone roll up to their headquarters swinging just a horse bone, yeah, this dude wasn't normal. People always saw him as a straight-up monster. Walked over quietly, not saying anything. He paused for a second. He grabbed the bone and just went for it, swinging hard. The hit was brutal, launching the guy all the way across the hallway. He smashed right through the wall. The survivor stood there shaking. He tried to scramble backward, totally freaked out, barely able to get his words out as he wanted to know who was and who sent him. Just hit him with a straight-up, icy reply. He said it was the blacksmith, no hesitation. He took another swing. He took his own life. Life stood there, looking down at the bodies on the ground. Looked over the mess he'd just made. The four top guys from the Black Sect were done for, and he figured that should cover what he owed. Without wasting any more time, he headed out, his mind already on the shopkeeper. That night, the whole sky turned bright red, lighting up everything in this kind of creepy way. The main chamber of the Black Sect was where everything went down. The two guys sat facing each other, tension thick in the air. One finally spoke up, clearly annoyed. He pointed out that the mission flopped and mentioned how both the master and the young master were seriously mad about it. He started laying into the other guy, not holding back. He thought if they just made the Black Sect look like some random forest bandits and hit the Tiger Enforcement Bureau's place, they could have walked away with the stolen goods and grabbed the clan's reward too. But nah, things got messed up because they couldn't pull it off, and now everything was trashed. Who ran the Black Crew was straight up furious as he heard the news. His hands tightened into fists while he came clean about the ambush flopping hard. They'd lost way too many guys. Now, without the stuff they jacked, he was stressing that they might not even have enough to pay their tribute. The squad of villains teamed up. He started talking with a deeper voice, thinking about how scary it'd be if that money-collecting demon showed up. He couldn't hold it in anymore. Pounded the table, mind going a mile a minute. He was sure he'd already sent plenty of guys to take down the Tiger Enforcement Bureau. He never thought his whole squad would get wiped out like that. Nobody came back, so now they had no clue what actually went down. The other guy stood up, looking smug, and hinted that they probably should brought in one of the four black elites right from the start. Snapped, clearly annoyed. He thought that if someone had just given them a heads up about how tough the Tiger Pit sex guards actually were, they could have dodged this whole mess. The guy shot him a cold, almost evil grin. He slammed his hand down on the table right after, making it clear he wasn't backing down. He called out for pointing fingers at them when it wasn't their fault. Then with this dead serious tone, he made it clear, if they messed up again, nobody was getting out of there alive. Dropped his head into his hands and let out a deep sigh. He knew exactly what was up, but admitting it to himself just stung. The other guy just kept it cool, totally unfazed. He pointed out that unless the Tiger Enforcement Bureau somehow messed up moving their target, the Tiger Pit sect would never get trapped. Without that, the young master's whole marriage thing wasn't going anywhere. And with a smug look, he made it clear, the young master wasn't about to chill until he got the girl he wanted. Just snapped, he raised his voice, letting everyone know he'd had enough and didn't want to hear the same thing again. His frustration ran through the whole room, hanging in the air, until out of nowhere something changed. Out of nowhere, a loud noise blasted through the air. Both guys stopped in their tracks and turned to see where it came from. Could feel his heart beating fast. He figured that noise had to be from the entrance. That spot was supposed to have four of the top guys watching it. He suddenly looked serious. A few seconds later, the door slowly swung open, making that old squeaky sound. They couldn't believe what they saw. Four heads suddenly rolled across the floor, each one belonging to one of the Black's top guys. Both guys just froze, totally speechless. The clan rep froze up, totally thrown off by what he was seeing. He could barely process that the four top guys just got wiped out, and the idea that the Orthodox sect might have sent in some powerhouse to take them all out had him straight up rattled. Everyone started getting more tense, and that's when finally came out of the shadows, moving real slow. The guy from the clan didn't waste a second. He instantly tried to cover himself, stumbling over his words as he said he was part of the Jiao clan. He made it clear he wasn't connected to the Black at all. He said he just showed up to talk things out. He started things off and really wanted to trust what he was saying. His face got serious, his lips pressed tight and his jaw locked up. When the guy noticed freezing up, he stepped up again, saying he'd help with the kill, but wasn't having it. He just coughed up some blood and launched it right into the dude's left eye. The Jiao guy yelled out, grabbing his face like he was in serious pain. He wanted to know what was up to, freaking out because he'd already told everyone he wasn't with the Black. Right then, thought back to what his master used to say before he passed. People who master the toughest demonic skills earn the name Demon Breakers. For martial artists, just a drop of Demon Breaker blood can mess you up bad, it's basically poison. Figured his blood wasn't as strong as a real Demon Breaker's, but it would still sting bad, like dumping hot chili powder straight on a wound. The Jiao man, totally fired up and struggling to see straight, yanked out his sword. He was clearly losing it, wanting answers from and not holding back at all. He charged in, swinging hard like he was ready to settle things right there. Slipped out of the way without breaking a sweat. He clocked everything, keeping it to himself. Everyone could tell the guy was seriously skilled, but he still wasn't on the same level as those 4 top fighters he'd already taken out. Out of nowhere, this deep red glow started coming off in the he was holding. Both guys just stopped dead, straight up stunned. The Jiao dude couldn't even talk right, totally thrown off by what he was seeing. Everyone started yelling, saying there's no way was messing around with dark magic. The guy, totally desperate, came at again, his eyes looking straight up wild. He was losing it, yelling that wasn't some regular master, just a complete demon. Dodged his attack without breaking a sweat and went for his own swing. His bone slammed right into the guy's foot, totally messing up the dude's balance. The guy dropped to the ground, completely wiped out, and right after that, slammed the bone down hard. He was gone in a second. Sweat was running down his face and he couldn't stop shaking. His mind was going a mile a minute. He totally got what was happening. Wasn't just some regular fighter. He was on a whole different level, something you really didn't want to mess with. In his head, he knew guys like this were way past the usual lines people drew between good and bad. Everyone in the martial world saw them as straight-up monsters, like the worst kind. Demon users were known for being brutal, just tearing through anything or anyone that got in their way until they leveled up their skills. That's exactly how he saw them. Well was caught up with the guy, started sliding back, trying to dip out without getting noticed. He went for a hidden spot, reaching out carefully like he knew exactly where to look. He spotted a bookshelf. His mind was racing. If he could sneak out, maybe he'd actually have a shot at getting away. He thought about reaching out to the Evil Alliance first. If that didn't work, maybe the Martial Alliance was his backup plan. He might get a heads up. The secret latch snapped into place and suddenly the bookshelf shifted, showing a tight hallway behind it. But just as he was about to step forward, his voice cut through the air behind him, sounding straight up icy. He called out, trying to figure out if it was really him standing there. Stopped in his tracks and glanced over his shoulder, his heartbeat picking up. He couldn't believe it, actually seemed like he still had his head on straight. He'd already locked down the whole demon power thing, but he never lost his head. The way he handled all that dark energy honestly freaked people out. He started wondering if this guy was actually a top-tier master. He finally got what was happening and straight-up panic kicked in. Dropped down hard, forehead straight to the floor, showing he was totally giving in. He was desperate for it to let this slide, basically promising he'd do whatever it took if just let him live. He started stressing hard, saying today was the last day to pay the tribute to the Evil Alliance. If he missed it, he was basically done for. Even could end up getting dragged into the hassle. Stared down at him, eyes totally unreadable. Turns out was sharper than he gave him credit for. After thinking for a second, switched things up and basically told to quit martial arts altogether. His whole body started shaking hard. He couldn't even get a word out, just froze up, not believing what he'd just heard. Stared him down, his eyes going cold. He let it be known, if didn't do what he said, he'd just take him out, no hesitation. His thoughts started spinning fast. He hated the idea of giving up his martial arts because for him that was basically the same as being dead. If things were going to end either way, he figured he might as well go out swinging. He pulled out his sword, eyes locked in and ready to go. Saw it coming way before anyone else did. He jumped right in, basically calling him out for being all talk and no action. The came swinging right at him. Just dodged in time, but the heavy red energy almost knocked him off balance. He struggled to stay on his feet, seriously thrown off by how strong's power felt. It was nothing like what he expected from someone at the top level. He saw right away that wasn't even that good, just a wannabe warrior, and a wild grin spread across his face. He started calling out, making fun of him for even trying to pull a fast one. Just rolled his eyes, not buying any of it. In his head was basically a joke. He just said straight up that things were about to get a lot easier for him now. You could tell from his tone he was done messing around. He was ready to wipe out the black, no hesitation. Lost his balance and dropped to the ground, grabbing his head like something just hit him out of nowhere. Something weird started happening where it had cut him. He couldn't believe what he was feeling. He looked at the situation and honestly couldn't believe it was real. Everyone started wondering if he'd pulled off some sneaky move with that last hit. Walked up, not rushing at all, his stare icy as he glanced down at the sect leader laid out on the ground. He let know that honestly, things only worked out this easily because had messed up on his own. Right then the evil spirit started moving in, laughing loud and rough. It basically told that they were both going down together. Totally snapped and just started swinging his sword like he had nothing to lose. Stopped the hit and came back at him with his own move. The hit landed right on his left arm, shouted and jumped into action right away. Saw the attack coming and just stepped out of the way like it was nothing. Just froze, totally thrown off, and needed to figure out what this move was supposed to be. In his head he looked at its moves and thought they were kind of like an assassin's, wild but still controlled, and you never really knew what was coming next, even though every move seemed planned out. Every move looked like it was meant to end someone, no matter what was going on. To him, was like a demon out there, moving wild on the battlefield. He barely had time to catch his breath before, just rocked him with a nasty hit straight to the face. He dropped to the floor, struggling to catch his breath. Was just lying there, grabbed a random piece of paper floating down in front of him. He glanced at it, clearly unimpressed, and his face said it all, he wasn't having it. As he read, the paper listed out sturdy moves, stuff like snatching up regular women and selling them off to shady places. He took their cash to level up the black sect to what it is now. On top of that, had racked up a bunch of debt with the Tiger Enforcement Bureau. As the list of his crimes was read out loud, just lost it and started crying. He was desperate, begging for mercy and looking at like he was some kind of legend. He kept saying he was in the wrong and promised over and over that if they let him go, he'd never mess up like that again. Didn't even listen to him. He just grabbed a torch and stared down, eyes cold like he didn't care at all. He wondered how many people had stood in front of him desperate to stay alive, just like he was right now. Thought that was the real thing he needed to know. Held the torch right up to his face. The fire got close and the sect leader totally lost it, tears streaming, begging non-stop, promising he'd do whatever it took just to get out of this. Didn't care at all. He set on fire, just watching as the flames took over and screamed in pain. Picked up the bone he'd been carrying and figured doing this might make things a bit less rough for the Tiger Enforcement Bureau. Was barely hanging on, his eyes going wide with fear. Right before everything faded, his mind jumped to the Tiger Enforcement Bureau. That's when it hit him. Maybe this guy was the one causing all the chaos lately. He didn't even get to finish thinking before his weapon dropped. He dropped on the spot, gone before he even knew what hit him. Stood there serious and focused. Right there, the body of the Black Dow's sect leader just lay on the ground. He realized this dude was, his breathing slowed and he tried to steady himself. He turned and left, thinking that maybe, after all that went down, the guy actually mattered a little. He walked out of the chamber and caught some voices coming from outside. A crew came running down the hall, telling their boss to pick up the pace. As soon as they saw, they wanted answers about who he was. But before he could even react, they straight up decided it didn't matter and just yelled for everyone to take him out. Just rolled his eyes at how cocky they were acting, thinking this night was definitely going to drag on. The next day, everyone was already talking about it in the streets. The boys hung out at the stables, trading stories and hyping each other up. Word was going around that one guy had heard from someone who used to work for the Black. He said the whole group got wiped out in a single night and their place got burned down to nothing. Another kid couldn't believe it at first, but then just shrugged and said they kinda had it coming anyway. Wu Yan, who worked as a stable boy, started to share more about what happened. He mentioned that even their Tiger Pit sect got hit hard by the Black crew. The rest of the group looked stunned, not expecting Tiger Pit to take damage like that, and started asking if it was true. Wu explained that Black had picked up Tiger Pit's debts from, and their crew used to pull up all the time and mess things up. But now, since Black got wiped out, those debts basically meant nothing, and Tiger Pit ended up winning big. One of the guys couldn't help but point out how the dude who took down the Black was basically the hero of Manhwa. Right then, Wu spotted just hanging around instead of actually doing his job. He snapped at him, wanting to know if the horse mess was finally cleaned up. Turned around and gave him a straight-up cold stare, and that just made Wu Yan even more annoyed. He walked straight over, wanting to know why was looking at him like that and if there was an issue. Let out a quiet sigh, clearly annoyed. He thought about pulling out the gold token to get the kid to quiet down, but then changed his mind just as fast. Staying out of sight seemed like the best move until all the drama with the clan blew over. But then Wu Yan just lost it. He was totally done with acting up and basically told him he needed to pay attention and stop ignoring what people said. Right before things could get out of hand, someone stepped in with a sharp voice telling them to chill. Wu Yan froze the second he heard it. He was straight up scared, thinking to himself that he recognized who it was. A young woman stepped inside and called out Wu Yan, making sure he wasn't messing with the new guy. Just stopped in his tracks when he saw her. She stepped up with a chill vibe and let everyone know she wasn't really up to speed on how things worked around there. She thought the new guys needed a little slack. She told Wu Yen to just chill and give it some time. Wu Yen got all flustered, stumbling over his words while trying to explain himself. He tried to say the kid just wasn't listening, but the young woman wasn't buying it. Let him know straight up that even running into someone for a second could mean something. He started thinking about how wild life can get and how every person you meet actually matters. She mentioned maybe they'd cross paths again somewhere random, or even end up as family eventually. Wu Yen just rolled his eyes at the thought, pretty sure he'd never run into again. Another dude, kind of in his own world, figured nobody ever actually left on Wei anyway. Thens looked over at. He showed up grinning, looking super chill. She spotted him and figured he must be the new guy. She let him know that if anyone tried to mess with him, he could just come straight to her. Just stared at her, eyes getting big, mouth halfway open. Inside, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He noticed her face and voice weren't how he remembered, but her eyes were still the same, clear, just like before. It felt like she hadn't changed at all. He got hit with a wave of emotions. Flashed a genuine smile and he let her know that if someone tried to mess with her again, she needed to go over and let him know. Just stood there blinking, totally thrown off by what he just said. She looked kind of lost, not really sure what he was even talking about. Out of nowhere, Wu jumped in, calling out for running his mouth to her like that. Just smiled, looking even happier than before. Her face was calm and chill, like she really got what was going on. She gave a quick nod, showing she was on board with it all. That night, when everything got quiet, grabbed the weapons and got ready. He was tucked under the hay, keeping an eye on them from above. He told himself quietly that he got payback for both the escort warriors. From this point, the shopkeeper stays in the picture. He made it clear for everyone. He knew it was time to hunt down the guy who took out his sworn brother. In Anhui province, slipped through the darkness, moving fast and staying. He moved quietly through the night, barely making a sound as he headed straight for the clan manor. He jumped over the walls like it was nothing, moving quick and smooth like he'd done it 100 times. He moved fast, slicing through the air like he owned it. He slid onto the property without anyone catching on. One of the guards walking nearby suddenly stopped in his tracks. He tilted his head almost like he picked up on something weird, but before the guy could even react or call out, was already right behind him. One clean move, quick and on point. He took out the guard instantly, not even giving him a chance to react. He grabbed the lifeless body and pulled it over to a shadowy corner, keeping it out of sight. He kept it hidden where no one could spot it. He was pretty close by. Two young attendants moved side by side, their voices barely above a whisper in the silent night. One of them glanced around, clearly on edge, noticing how the security felt way than usual. The other shrugged it off, saying it made sense since the black sect got taken out in one night. She pointed out it wasn't really their problem anyway. Even so, her friend agreed, but you could tell she wasn't totally chill about it. Stayed low, hidden in the dark where nobody could spot him. He kept his ears open while checking out the place. He slid one iron thorn along the floor, not looking too happy about it. Another guard stood there. The guy moved up and just started hissing right away. He winced hard when the sharp caltrip stabbed right through his boot. His face went pale as he realized these things were actually made of iron, before he even had a chance to do anything. Came at him fast, the assassin took him out in one smooth move. He slipped away without a sound and headed up to the roof. The guy's body dropped to the floor, sitting there without moving. One of the guards close by caught sight of it and realized something was off. He called out to his buddy, wondering why he was just chilling instead of doing something, especially since they hadn't even eaten real food yet. While he was distracted, slipped by quietly, dumping some weird dark stuff from a tiny jar all over the meal the guys had left sitting out. The guard, clearly annoyed, slumped into his seat and started eating, quietly complaining to himself the whole time. He walked up to the guard, who was straight up acting like he didn't even exist. Annoyed, he let out another curse and pushed for a response, wanting the guy to actually pay attention. He barely got the words out. Blood started dripping out of his eyes, nose, and mouth. He looked freaked out as he stumbled back, clearly freaking over what was going down with him. He suddenly dropped to the floor, his whole body shaking uncontrollably. The other guards instantly freaked out, scrambling to figure out what was going on. One guy couldn't believe someone actually used poison and told everyone to grab the kitchen crew. Meanwhile, another made sure the gates got closed right away so nobody could dip out. Up on the roof, just watched, barely blinking. He snapped the lid shut on the jar of poison, and deep down he was kind of impressed, guessed that shopkeeper still had it. Honestly, the poison didn't even taste half bad, which caught him off guard a little. He realized he actually enjoyed it. Now that he knew his gear worked, he felt pretty confident. He knew it was time to pull up in person. Tonight, the clan's story was about to end for good. Inside the manor, a bunch of guards hung around, talking quietly to each other. One guy wasn't happy about all the extra security, saying it felt way over the top. Another guard nodded, reminding everyone it was all because of what happened with Black Dao. Their conversation got interrupted right then. He got snapped out of it when the loud noise hit. Glass shattered right in front of them, spraying everywhere and shot through the broken window, moving fast like he meant business. None of the guys even had a chance to pull their swords. His spear caught the light, and with one smooth move he dropped all three of them. He stepped over their bodies as they collapsed, not slowing down for even a second. He headed up the stairs, taking his time and keeping it chill. While he moved, a guard heading downstairs spotted him but just assumed was another guy on patrol. He mentioned he was supposed to be on the 4th floor and wanted to know what that crazy noise was. He said the master had already crashed for the night and told to let everyone know to keep it down. Then he noticed holding a long spear instead of the usual sword. He scrunched up his face, totally lost. He barely had time to process what was happening. Rushed in and drove the spear right through him. The guy took one sharp breath, then just went still. The guards saw what was happening and totally freaked out when they figured out an assassin had slipped into the manor. They started yelling for backup, wondering where everyone else was. Even though things got hectic fast and they charged ahead, didn't flinch. He just scattered some iron thorns on the ground, staying cool under pressure. The guys yelled out when something sharp went straight through their feet. He staggered, barely able to move as pain hit him out of nowhere. Didn't hold back, he moved in fast, his spear coming at full speed, not giving the other guy any room to breathe. He kept swinging the hammer non-stop until nobody was left standing. Nobody moved, the whole manor just went quiet and the tension was unreal. From one of the rooms, someone with a chill but serious vibe spoke up, clearly not happy about how loud things had gotten. Just stopped dead for a second, his gaze sharpening up. Right then his gut told him something was seriously off. In his head he had to admit, whoever owned that voice had some serious power, way beyond what could pull off. The door swung open and an older guy stepped out, moving like he owned the place and wasn't afraid of anything. He walked ahead, taking his time, totally chill. His face went cold. The old man let know that just because he showed up without an invite. It didn't mean he could forget about basic respect. His eyes, sharp and icy, locked onto the person standing in front of him, sizing them up quietly. He realized he was finally standing right in front of the guy who'd done all the killing. He used a ton of innocent people just to get what he wanted, the same guy who basically ruined his life. The old man stared at him for a while, giving off this intense vibe that made it hard to breathe. After a moment, he wanted to know why the kid showed up so late. Stared straight at the guy in front of him, looking serious. He pointed out that the man was he was the boss of the clan. His face turned serious. He glared at, clearly annoyed, and let him know he wasn't about to put up with any disrespect. He wanted answers, straight up asking where showed up from, since he clearly wasn't repping any normal squad. Started thinking out loud, guessing maybe had some connection to that Wild Valley, one of those powerful secret groups, or maybe he came from way past those dark deserts. Just watched without saying a word, sizing him up. Inside, he could tell right away that something was off. The guy's energy felt weird, all messed up but somehow still sharp. Knew this fight was going to be tough, not something he could just breeze through. After a moment, he finally spoke up, letting everyone know exactly where he stood and repping the Tiger Pit sect. Stared, not really buying what he was seeing. He couldn't wrap his head around the idea of someone from the Tiger Pit sect ending up like. He kept wondering what was really going on between in that sect. Just shot him a cold look, making it clear he was just a guest here, nothing special. He was basically just a servant, maybe even less, just some guy who took care of the horses. Laughed, totally unbothered, making it clear he wasn't about to hand over anything without a fight. To him, it didn't really matter whose side was on. Dude was already stuck in the mess, and there was no backing out now. Pulled out his sword and you could just feel this heavy pressure coming off him. It was intense. He was all business, ready to end things right there, and checked if was on the same page. Got ready to make his move. Shut his eyes for a second, just trying to process what was happening. Seeing standing right there felt unreal to him. Back in his old life, he remembered this guy had just lived quietly and never caused any drama. Always had to keep her feelings in check, never getting the chance to stand up for herself. But this time things were different. New things had changed this time around. He wasn't planning to let what happened to slide. Quietly, he promised himself he'd get payback for her right here, right now. Both fighters rushed in at once. Sword smashed against the spear, making a sharp sound that echoed through the air. The sound ripped through the place. Got pushed back, losing a step. He looked totally caught off guard by what just happened. His eyes went wide and he just couldn't believe what he was seeing. He wanted to find out if was messing around with magic or something. He could tell right away that was using the clan's moves. The energy was basically pouring out of him. Kept his cool and just wanted to know what made even think that in the first place. Sized himself up in his head. His spirit title was sitting at the 9th level of the compression stage, which pretty much put him on the same level as Jiao, one of the top guys out there right now. He realized it wasn't about who was stronger. What really mattered was the huge gap in experience between a guy living his second life and everyone else. Was there too. They went at it again. They went at it fast, both landing hits clean and sharp. Called out, noticing skills weren't half bad. Even with all those moves, it was clear they just weren't enough to take him down. Couldn't help but smile, already roasting the younger guy in his head. He wondered if would totally freeze up when he got hit with a random flash of fire right in his face. Out of nowhere, his stomach starts acting up. He rushed ahead, moving way faster than anyone expected. Got surprised and just managed to slip out of the way. He still pushed on. Spear slid just close enough to slice neck, leaving a thin cut. His face changed, looking way more serious than before. He realized wasn't just all talk, this dude was actually dangerous, almost took his head off. Not wasting time, fired back right away. His blade barely scraped his side. He shot a quick grin, letting him know he almost got him good. Clenched his jaw, annoyed that had the upper hand. He could tell right away the guy's punches landed from way farther out, and he moved with the kind of confidence only someone with years of fighting could pull off. Getting a solid chance to strike back wasn't gonna be easy. He threw one of his weapons but was already on it. Slipped past the attack like it was nothing. Just laughed, clearly impressed, and thought could probably handle weapons from a distance too. Chucked a hammer at, making look up for a second. Instead of backing down, just grinned even wider and kept coming at him. Seeing how stubborn was made even more interested in the fight. Now he was really curious about the kind of wild teacher this guy grew up with. Right in the middle of the fight, threw out an offer. If gave up now, he'd let him join his crew as one of his own. Just rolled his eyes, mind totally iced out. He could tell was capping, just trying to cover up whatever move he was about to pull next. Right then. Slammed his foot down hard on the floor. He let out a sudden blast of power right then. He swung with everything he had and tried to slip out of the way. He tripped over the body of a guard who was already down. He muttered something under his breath, barely holding it together. Didn't waste a second, he rushed in hard, eyes locked, clearly out to finish this right then and there. His sword went straight through. Stopped for a second, honestly not expecting to just stay quiet. He couldn't help but think to himself that was braver than he thought. He actually said his own son couldn't handle anything, calling him soft, like even a small cut would put him out of commission. Admitted that's the real reason he wanted his son to have a tough wife to back him up. He spoke softly, almost like he was tired, saying he wasn't sure how much time he had left. What really mattered to him was just being able to see his grandchild's face. He didn't see his reaction coming at all. It totally caught him off guard. Just grabbed the sword that was stuck in him and kept it steady, not even flinching. Grabbed the blade and tried to yank it out, but it just wouldn't budge. His face totally changed when he saw what was happening. He just stared, not believing actually caught the blade. He used his own rib. His whole body started trembling as it finally hit him. Had left a weak spot on purpose earlier, just to mess with him and make him go for the attack. Just stared at, his eyes totally unreadable. He let know he was about to drop the real number on how long the clan lord had left. While he was talking, this wild red aura burst out all around him. He could feel the pressure building fast, heavy, and intense. Got hit with fear out of nowhere, something he honestly didn't think he'd ever feel for real. His brain was yelling at him to get out, but his body just wouldn't move. His heart was pounding, and he kept telling himself to back up and put some space between him and whatever was in front of him. His presence was heavy, completely surrounding him. With a dirty grin, dropped his enemy's name under his breath, almost like he was spitting it out. Totally lost his cool, panic took over and he started muttering curses. His brain stuck on one thing, getting out of there fast. He could feel this heavy pressure all around him, like something dark was closing in fast. Jiao got swallowed up in his presence was intense, it was like the whole room got heavier. Right then he pushed his spear forward without hesitating. He slammed a brutal shot right into his chest. Blood dripped from his mouth as he stumbled backwards, pain shooting through him. Just stood there totally stunned, trying to catch his breath and figure out what that crazy energy was. He kept thinking it had to be some kind of mind trick, like someone hit him with straight-up killing vibes, and he couldn't wrap his head around how some random kid could pull off something that intense. Just grinned, his face twisted with this wicked look. He drove the spear in even further, not holding back at all. While doing it, he let know that all those fights he'd been through over the years were nothing compared to this. Those were just organized matches and practice runs, nothing real. Went all in and drove his weapon straight through, finishing it for real. He started talking and every word hit hard. He shared how he got pulled into some brutal war back in the day where it was all out chaos and everyone was just trying not to get killed. Back then it was either take someone out or get taken out, no in between. When he compared that to what was happening now, he made it clear this fight was nothing to him. It was basically just messing around compared to what he'd already survived. Dropped to the ground, his body just giving out on him. Let go of the spear. He grabbed his hammer from where it was sitting close by. Was barely hanging on, his voice super weak as he tried to get out his last words. All he cared about in that moment was his kid. He just wanted to let his son live. You could hear how desperate he was, even though he could barely speak. All he kept thinking was that his son shouldn't have to go out like this. Stared down, his face totally blank, and lifted his hammer. He let everyone know right away that what they were asking for just wasn't happening. Then, not wasting a second, he swung the weapon down hard. He slammed right in the head. Grinned, clearly enjoying himself as he pointed something out. When it was all said and done, realized he'd never get to see what his grandkid looked like. He swiped the blood off his face, looking tough but honestly pretty pleased with himself. Knew deep down he had to get himself back on track. There's nothing shown yet, it's just the cover. All around him the spirits started murmuring, their voices sliding quietly through the stillness. They cracked up and waved him over, egging him to come along. They said they could smell something and started leading him in the direction of the scent. Checked out everything in the room. He spotted a pot nearby and the spirits kept pushing him, pretty much telling him that whatever he was looking for had to be in there. Broke the pot open and right there young master crawled out, shaking like he'd just seen a ghost. The boy totally freaked out, yelling for to stay back. Panic took over as he shouted for someone to help, his voice going way higher than normal. Looked down at him, his eyes totally blank. In his head, he thought about how guys like this were the reason so many people had to go through stuff they didn't deserve. He grabbed the young master by the hair and yanked him up, making the kid scream out again, totally freaked. Started messing with him, pointing out how he still had enough energy to yell. He looked at the guy, basically saying that just because he grew up rich and had connections, he probably thought everything in the world was his for the taking. The young master's face totally dropped and tears just kept rolling down. He couldn't stop shaking, his whole body was out of control. Looked at him, gave a smug smirk, and basically let him know he was about to put him front and center, like he was about to be the main event. He got real close, eyes locked on the guys, almost grinning as he made it clear he was the main character tonight. When the night finally wrapped up, all over Manhwa posters started popping up. The stuff written on them was pretty dark. The Orthodox sect teamed up with the Black sect just to score some unfair gains, so someone decided to serve justice for all the people they messed with. As soon as everyone spotted the notices, the crowd started buzzing, talking non-stop about what just went down. People started talking, trying to figure out what just happened since both the Black sect and the clan manor got taken out back to back. Word got around fast about some unknown vigilante who showed up and took out everyone, leaving only the servants behind. Most guys thought this was actually a win. The monsters who messed with the Tiger Pit sect were finally taken out. Everyone started guessing who this vigilante was. Neither nor had been easy to go up against. Meanwhile, the stable boys started whispering to each other. Wu Yen let them know he'd gotten some info from a woman who used to work at the clan manor. His buddies leaned in, waiting to hear what was next. They messed with him a bit, joking about how he always had these wild stories and how with his looks he probably had a ton of girls following him. Wu Yen wasn't having it though. He gave them a look to chill and told them to pay attention. He broke down what happened. The woman said the vigilante called out's name 3 times before taking him out. The stable boys glanced at each other, clearly uneasy. One guy wondered out loud what kind of name that even was. Another dude got chills and started saying it sounded like the vigilante just calls out his targets 3 times and then drags them straight to the underworld. Someone else, kind of nervous, said if that's real, that dude is straight up scary. Another person brought up whether a guy like that would ever join the Tiger Pit sect. Right then, the stable door flew open and someone yelled that he had showed up. The stable boys froze for a second, then tensed up, straight up scared. Somewhere else was just chilling on her horse, taking it slow. Her mind started to wander. She thought about what everyone was saying online about the vigilante known for making 3 calls to the underworld. This person just wrecked both the Black crew and the family's whole spot. Even though those groups were messed up, she couldn't bring herself to celebrate when bad stuff happened to other people. Still, she kept thinking about who the vigilante really was. The idea that it might even be a ghost kind of freaked her out, but honestly, she couldn't stop being curious. What got her attention the most, though, was how everything this vigilante did somehow help the Tiger Pit sect. Her mind jumped back to her sister's letter, in that moment, wrote about how a vigilante showed up just in time to help them keep the escorts and supplies safe when some bandits tried to pull something in the woods. She ended up giving the guy her gold medallion and told him to hit up the Tiger Pit sect if he ever came by, making sure it would treat him right. Realized no one with a gold medallion had shown up yet. She zoned out, lost in her thoughts, until the horseman gave the reins a quick tug. She snapped back to reality, blinking and looking around, trying to figure out where they'd ended up. She stopped in her tracks, eyes wide, totally caught off guard by what she saw. She stood there staring at the lake, totally blown away by how awesome it looked. She looked over at the guy leading her horse and started thinking about how he even knew she liked lakes. She couldn't remember ever mentioning it, and it had her kinda curious. Who turned out to be the horseman, let them know she already did. Stared at him, clearly lost, like she had no clue what he was talking about. Meanwhile, had something going on in his head, but he kept it to himself. He thought back to their last life and realized that whenever she was stressed or her head was all over the place, she'd always end up sitting by the lake. There is no script content to rewrite, as the original sentence provided is just, and the JSON data is empty. Slid his hand into his pocket, grabbing something, then placed it down on a nearby surface. A little plate sat there, leaned in, curious about what what was going on. Then smoke started drifting out, slowly filling the air around them. She spotted it right away and realized it was just insect-repellent incense. Honestly, she liked the lake a lot. The bugs always messed things up for her. She gave a friendly smile, kind of impressed by how thoughtful he was, especially since he just got there. She wondered if he acted like this at his old job, too. Took a second to think before he responded. He explained to her that a warrior gave his life for someone who actually saw his value. People used to act like he didn't matter. He just saw them as his own people and acted like it was no big deal. Just stood there not saying anything. What the guy said really threw him off and he was trying to process it all. After a few seconds, she let him know she wasn't going to dig into his business, but made it clear that as long as he was at Tiger Pit, he had people who had his back like family. She stretched her hand out to him right then. Couldn't help but think back to the last time he saw her right before everything reset. He thought back to the sound of her voice asking him that question. He wondered what her reason was for stepping in to help him. She'd already told everyone she was next in line to run the Tiger Pit sect. She believed him when he said the master and his wife were chill. From then on, things started to change for her. She saw him as family now. Right now, stretched his hand out, taking his time, but before he even got close, Wu just showed up out of nowhere, catching everyone off guard. The guys started yelling that the escorts were back. Couldn't hide her happiness, her whole face just lit up. She spun her horse around, eyes full of energy, looking like she was ready for anything. Stood there, hand still out, just staring at it, not really sure what to do next. Glanced back for a second, said sorry, and let him know she was heading out first. Before leaving, she mentioned there'd be a banquet later and told him not to fill up before then. She nudged her horse to move ahead, let out a quiet scoff, but then a small grin showed up on his face. He thought to himself that this wasn't actually that bad. That night the Tiger Pit sect threw a huge banquet. The main hall was packed, everyone laughing, cups clinking, and the smell of roasted meat and filling the air. Stood up at the front of the hall and raised his cup for everyone to see. He gave a shout-out to the head escort, calling him the real MVP for getting everyone through all the tough times on the road. The crowd went wild, hyped up and yelling for everyone to celebrate and have a good time. People were all about the Tiger Pit sect, showing love and respect. The main tables felt super lively, good vibes everywhere. The stable boys sitting in the back didn't vibe with the rest of the crowd. Kept to himself, just sipping his drink, face totally unreadable. Wu Yan, one of the guys working in the stables, came up behind him and dropped his hand down hard on his shoulder. He looked straight at, basically calling him out and acting like had no business being there with the young miss. The rest of the stable boys started laughing, saying only the veteran guards ever got to walk with her. Wu slid the food away from and gave him a smug look. They warned him that acting all cocky meant no food for him. The rest of the group piled on, yelling that a guy like him didn't deserve to eat and calling him names. But just stayed chill, not even bothered, which honestly just made everyone there even more annoyed. Showed up right then, she didn't even have to yell, her voice just stopped everyone in their tracks. The guys froze when she looked at them. She called them out, saying they were messing with again. Wu Yan quickly made up a story about just bringing over some food to share. One of the other stable boys tried to back him up, but he was clearly nervous and stumbled over his words. Let out a quiet sigh, not falling for it this time. She picked up a mochi ball from her plate and handed it to, showing she still cared. She brought up what she'd said earlier about him needing to tell her if anyone was messing with him. She checked him over, worried he wasn't eating right, and even wondered out loud if someone was keeping food from him. She made sure to remind him again, if anything like that was going on, he had to let her know. Right then, her dad called out to her. Didn't really want to leave, but she turned around anyway and let know she had to dip. Before heading out, she told him again to take care of himself and not skip meals. Then she just walked off. The stable boys were heated, not hiding how annoyed they were. Wu just lost it, really wanting to know how pulled it off with the young misses. One of the guys called out that was just a kid, like he didn't even belong in their league, while another said straight up that was only getting special treatment because of his looks. Wu just smirked, making it clear he was only doing this because the young miss told him to. They decided to give him food in the end. But instead of just handing it over, he grabbed the food and threw it straight at, telling him to eat like he was trying to start something. Just shifted to the side, and the food flew right past him without touching him. The stable boys started getting more worked up, telling him to quit messing around. Instead of backing off, they just started chucking even more food at him, one after another. Kept dodging everything like it was nothing, not missing a step. He only grabbed the meat, catching it right in his mouth and eating it quick like he didn't even care. Watching this, the guys got heated. They started yelling, saying was trying to clown them, that he had this look on his face that made them mad, and they swore they'd wipe that smug attitude off him. Up at the front of the banquet, stood up in front of everyone again. He let everyone know how grateful he was for getting their people and supplies back home safe, so now everybody could finally chill out. His wife stepped up too, promising all the families who lost someone that she'd have their backs no matter what. sat up front where everyone could see her. She gave a respectful nod and let everyone know not to stress about the families of the escorts who didn't make it. She made it clear she was just handling what needed to be done. Showed up next to her holding a teapot. He carefully filled her glass and thanked her for everything she'd done, nodded, showing she appreciated it, then brought up the guest with the gold plaque that was mentioned in the letter. Was actually curious about that person too. She hadn't spotted them anywhere and started to wonder if they ever made it to the Tiger Pit sect. Just shook her head, saying they never showed up. She made it clear that if they did, everyone would treated them like a VIP. Let out a quiet sigh, wishing he could go back and change what just happened. She let them know the guest was actually a young guy who rolled around with a spear and took on bad guys on his own. He had shown just how strong he really was, wiping out the Green Forest Bandits, who turns out were actually part of the Black Sect. She couldn't stop thinking about how she never got to thank him one more time. Deep down, she knew if someone like him was on her team, her crew would be way stronger, and she wouldn't have to lose any more of her people. Rested his hand softly on top of us, just kind of letting it sit there without saying anything. She told her to just chill out and let all that stress go with a drink. She pointed out that all her grinding had really paid off. That night, tons of people couldn't stop smiling. Stood there kind of caught off guard, scanning the hall. Everything around her just hit different and her mind was all over the place. Everyone there looked happy with smiles all around. She looked around and it finally hit her. Everything she and her squad had pushed through was just so people could chill and live their normal lives. She glanced over at the table where the stable boys were hanging out. She just stopped in her tracks as soon as she saw. Her hands shook and her cup just dropped. She honestly couldn't believe what just happened. She noticed the same annoying kid from earlier just chilling right there. Caught her watching him while he kept weaving around the snacks flying his way. He lifted his finger to his mouth, letting her know to keep it down. His heart was beating fast and she was sweating all over. She almost wanted to just break down right there. His voice echoed in her mind, calm but serious. He let her know it wasn't the right moment. She had to chill and hold off on using that gold plaque. Until he gave the signal, she couldn't say a word about him. The stable boys were completely wiped out, barely catching their breath. Wu Yan, struggling to breathe, was super annoyed and kept trying to get to chill out and stay still. The group took a breath and decided to go all in for one last shot. They rushed him at the same time, ready to throw down, but right as they made their move, out of nowhere, a weird noise started bouncing around the banquet hall. Something just popped off right next to their table. In that spot, some random guy had hit a wooden bell using a bone. He kept his cool and told everyone to chill so he could eat in peace, and just like that, the room went quiet. Wu Yen shot a nasty look, clearly ticked off. He started going off, saying the guy should be thankful the sect master even let someone like him show up to the feast. He threw out insults about how the guy smelled and told him to just eat fast and bounce. The mysterious guy just grinned, clearly entertained, and called the kid feisty. Then he stretched out his hand, saying under his breath that maybe the kid needed to get put in his place. Wu Yen wanted answers and tried to figure out what the guy was whispering. But just as the stranger moved in, didn't hesitate, he yanked him back quick. His eyes went wide, totally caught off guard. He noticed how fast reacted and thought the kid was definitely going places. Then the man stood up and moved smoothly, almost like he was just floating. He stared hard at Wu, basically telling him he owed that kid big time for stepping in and saving his life. The stable boys just stood there, totally confused, while the stranger walked off like nothing happened. Wu Yen quietly thought this guy had to be out of his mind. The mysterious guy stepped right into the middle of the banquet hall and started talking loud enough so everyone had to pay attention. He appreciated the sect for having him at the legit feast. He wasn't too happy that the sake was cold. He grinned and took charge, saying he'd handle pouring everyone a cup of hot sake himself. He jumped straight onto the table, landing right in front of the sect leader. He set his finger down softly on the wood. He let out a burst of energy from deep inside, like he just unlocked a new level. The sake sitting on the table started to get warm, and then it just straight up started bubbling. He watched as it slowly disappeared until there was nothing left at all. The guy laughed to himself, acting like he was sorry for making it way too hot and making all the good sake disappear. Just sat there completely still, caught off guard by what she'd just seen. It hit her right away this guy wasn't normal. Just from the way he controlled his energy, she could tell he was on a whole different level, like he'd maxed out his power for real. Got up fast, his eyes locked on the monk, wanting to know who this guy even was. He just grinned and let everyone know he definitely wasn't some monk. He grabbed the wooden fish on his way over. He stepped up and said his name without hesitating. Everyone in the room watched as he introduced himself, making it clear he was the guy people called the money-collecting demon. He was tied in with the Unorthodox Alliance, and back in the day, folks used to call him the Staff Demon. He made sure everyone knew his name. Everyone used to know as the Staff Demon back in the day. His name was everywhere because he was one of the most feared guys around. Two demons, both twins, just tore through the martial world like nothing could stop them. After going head-to-head with the Alliance, he ended up facing their boss and took the L. Ever since then, he had no choice but to work for them. Now his main job was to hunt down groups that missed their payments, and if anyone tried to push back, he completely wiped out their crew. Stared at him, sizing him up and wondering if this was the guy handed the golden plaque to. Shut it down right away. She made it clear this wasn't the guy, and honestly she'd never even seen him before. Took the spot at the very front of the banquet table, towering over everyone else. He moved slow and steady as he poured himself some wine, making sure everyone was watching before he started talking to the whole room. He thought about how it had been ages since he'd been back to Anhui province. While he was gone, he'd heard people talking about the black sect and the clan manor getting wrecked. As he brought it up, this crazy heavy vibe suddenly took over the banquet hall, making everyone around him feel like they couldn't even breathe. He thought it was pretty obvious. If they started throwing a loud party right now, everyone would start looking at them sideways. Just stopped in his tracks, totally thrown off by how intense the guy's vibe was. Didn't waste any time shutting it down, saying it was just random and that his group wasn't involved at all. Just smiled in this cold, almost creepy way. He basically let them know that if everything was really fine, they could just keep eating like nothing weird was going on. Out of nowhere, he glanced over his shoulder to the back of the hall. He'd heard the talk before, but seeing the woman standing there now, he realized she was even tougher than people had been saying. He looked right at and caught off guard. Wanted answers and wasn't letting it slide until he figured out what the guy meant. Couldn't help but laugh out loud when he remembered hearing how the clan basically lost their minds over her looks, and that it ended up ruining them. Now that he saw her in person, he totally got what the hype was about. He joked about his face, saying it made sense if a couple of sects had noticed him. Guys had tripped up just because she looked so good. He let out this loud laugh and out of nowhere was right in front of her, getting real close. He wanted to know what she expected would happen to someone with zero power but a face like that. She didn't even get the chance to reply before things moved on. He spit right in her face, just stopped totally frozen, shaking because she was scared and embarrassed. Watched her grinning like he thought it was hilarious. He acted like she deserved to be treated like this, just getting totally disrespected in front of everyone. Then he started laughing way too loud, his voice echoing across the whole place. His laugh got cut off real quick when swords slid out of their sheaths. And didn't waste a second, they grabbed their weapons and aimed them right at. Was fired up, clearly not having it with whatever was pulling. He pretty much made it clear if just showed up to start something, nobody here was about to just chill and let that slide. Didn't even flinch, he just grabbed some meat, took a bite, and looked at them like they were a joke, acting like there was no way they could ever take him down. Stared straight ahead, eyes icy and locked in. Winning or losing wasn't even the point for him. Someone had just disrespected his daughter right in front of him, and that was something he couldn't just let slide. He told to step outside with him, not wanting to drag random people into their drama, but just brushed him off, acting like there was no reason to move anywhere else. He was set on squaring up right there, not wasting a second. Right then stepped in, stopping things before they could get out of hand. She kept asking her dad to put his sword away. She stayed cool, wiped her face off, then looked straight at. She let him know she appreciated the lesson he just gave them. He calmly handed him a cup of wine, keeping it chill and respectful. Stared at her, clearly not getting why she'd hand him a drink after he just disrespected her like that. He just started roasting her, saying it was pretty sad for someone who came from a family of warriors. Kept her cool and made it clear she wasn't putting up with anything just to suck up to anyone. She said was on another level, like a legit legend in the martial arts world, and she was just giving props like any junior would do for someone who's put in that much work. For a second, his face got serious. He clenched his teeth, then let out this cold laugh, almost making fun of himself. Even though he acted like a big shot, all he really did was spit at a girl. He pointed out how weird that was, like he couldn't believe it himself. Just shrugged it off, saying maybe what she said didn't come out right, but she was really just being honest about how she felt. She kept it real, no cap. She lowered her head, handed him another cup, and waited to see if he'd take it. Everything was quiet for a second, then out of nowhere made his move. He just lost it and started laughing loud enough for everyone to hear, once he finally calmed down. He took the cup and finished the drink. He finished it all at once. Nobody saw it coming when he suddenly said sorry for acting rude before, then told the sect leader to put his sword away. He had this sneaky smile on his face, like he was already planning his next move. He explained he was only doing this to help keep his rep, and that it was time to just move on. Rolled his eyes but listened anyway, dropping his blade down. Walked by and shot him a look, kind of smug. If he was 50 years younger, he probably would try to take for himself. Right when he was getting ready to head out, he paused and spun around, realizing he almost left out the biggest thing. He let them know that ever since the Black Sect got wiped out, he still hadn't gotten what was promised to him. If he went back with nothing, people would start talking and his image would take a hit. Eyes narrowed as he tried to figure out what this guy was really getting at. Leaned in wearing a smug grin and made it clear he didn't care who wiped out the Black Sect or wrecked the clan's place. The only thing he cared about right now was getting the cash he needed. He pointed out that he just helped out in front of everyone, so now it was chance to step up for him. kept his cool and wanted to know if was actually out here trying to take tribute from clans that were part of the Orthodox sects. Started messing with him, acting like calling it tribute was lame. He said he liked calling it a consolation fee instead. Jenin wasn't letting it go, pushing back and wanting to know if he'd tried to get that same fee from the clan too. Just brushed it off, thinking there's no way he'd pull something like that. He knew if he ever tried, the patriarch would finish him on the spot. He looked over it again and pointed out how the Tiger Pit sect made a solid profit on their last trip. He told them to just see it as a payout for the black sect members who didn't make it. After saying that, he waited to see if would go for it. There was a pretty long silence. Let out a deep sigh, not really wanting to go along with it but starting to give in. He asked for a bit of time but didn't even get to finish what he was saying. Smashed his staff down so hard the floor straight up broke apart, leaving a massive dent where it hit. He started talking tougher, making it clear that nobody has time to waste. Grabbed his head, super stressed out. His mind was running wild, thinking about how messing with the staff demon could get the whole Tiger Pit sect wiped out before morning. He knew even hitting up the clan for backup wasn't a sure thing, they might just leave him hanging. At the end of it all, he realized there was just one thing he could do. Looking at the huge crater left behind, finally told everyone to bring out all the cash. They dropped a thick bag stuffed with gold and silver bars right in front. He couldn't hold back a laugh as he walked right up to check it out. Didn't waste time making it clear. The cash was only his if promised to leave everyone from the Tiger Pit sect alone. Checked out the ingots, looking pretty pleased with himself. He let everyone know he wasn't some kind of monster. He had his own lines he would cross. But he couldn't help throwing a jab at, pointing out how intense the guy looked even while handing over cash. Just brushed it off, acting chill, and said he'd take the payment without any complaints. He got ready to head out and casually tossed a gold ingot over to. He said this was him making up for spitting on her earlier. Just looked down, not saying a word. Meanwhile, tightened his fists, clearly annoyed, but he kept quiet too. Finally faced the exit. He let out a laugh, looking like he was ready to bounce. He let them know he didn't need anyone to walk him out. With the moon lighting everything up, he could easily find his way back by himself. That night at the stables, two stable boys were hanging out, talking in hushed voices. One of them said he overheard some escort saying was so strong he could have wiped out everyone at the banquet solo. The other boy was just glad everything got sorted with cash because once someone's gone, that's it. They both agreed, thinking about a guy like that was actually scary. Right then, Wu darted straight into the stables. Sweat was dripping down his face as he tried to breathe, holding a bundle of food tight in his hands. The guys didn't expect to see him show up, and when they noticed what he was carrying, they got curious. Since the banquet was a disaster, they figured everything would be gone by now. Still, they gave him props for always having their backs. Wu brushed off everyone's questions and just wanted to find out where was. The stable boys said they hadn't spotted him around for a while. Wu Yen just went quiet for a second and softly said's name. His thoughts flashed back to when almost took him out but jumped in and had his back. That memory hit him different, making his chest feel weird. He couldn't hold it in anymore, so he just let it out, yelling into the night. His voice echoed through the quiet stables as he called out for, showing everyone just how much he missed him. He looked around, trying to figure out where everyone went. Somewhere else under the glow of the moon. Go walked out of the banquet with a grin, feeling pretty good. He headed over to a wooden bridge, just taking it all in. He started walking closer and spotted somebody just chilling on the other side. He paused and squinted, instantly realizing who was standing there. Stood there and you could just tell by his vibe that something was off. He gave off this intense, kinda scary energy. Saw what was in front of him and couldn't help but laugh a little. At first, he honestly thought it might be some kind of monster, but nope, it was just a guy. He realized it was the same stable hand he'd seen earlier that night. He wanted to know what made him trail after him. He looked at like he was joking and threw out the idea that maybe only showed up because of what he said about his girl. If was here to get back at him for her, then he was totally off base. He owned up to spitting in her face, but she just stood there, not even flinching. To him, it felt pointless, like his whole move didn't even land. He figured there was nothing left to get back at her for. Finally broke the silence. His voice was cold, almost giving goosebumps. Let him know that maybe acting like a monk without really meaning it was why ended up saying stuff that made zero sense. He signaled that it was time to stop talking, moved up taking his time, and then, out of nowhere, he rushed straight at, spear in hand, demanding cash. The spear sliced through the air, coming right at him. Suddenly cracked up, laughing way louder than anyone expected. He slipped past every attack like it was nothing, his voice blasting across the bridge. He let everyone know it had been 40 years since someone talked to him like that. The only one bold enough before was the rogue Night King, and now had stepped up, ready to challenge him too. He thought the whole thing was hilarious and just couldn't keep it together. He started cracking up. Then, still laughing, he swung his staff hard and slammed it right into his weapon, making a loud impact. got knocked backwards and stared down at his spear, hands shaking. Checked out the spear with a grin, clearly impressed. He wanted to know what it was called. Just answered, totally unfazed, saying it had nothing. Thought it was kind of a waste since the staff was pretty small, but it was still a solid weapon. He twirled it around in his hands, showing off a little. He suddenly hit the brakes and just stood still. He showed them the weapon, saying it used to be a spear. Once the blade snapped off, he just started swinging it around like a club instead. The thing was made out of black iron, so it was still tough, just way heavier than it needed to be. He couldn't help but think if only the blade was still there. If people saw what he could do with a spear, everyone would started calling him the spear demon, not the club demon. He honestly thought that was a real shame. He didn't even get the chance to finish. Grabbed the wooden bridge and started shaking it hard, saying it didn't matter how strong it looked. At the end of the day, it was just a spear missing its blade. Jumped in, pushing forward and comparing it to a wild wolf that lost its bite. Himself started to lose his balance, looking like he might go down any second. He lost it and started yelling calling her disgusting. He barely dodged the hit, slipping out of the way just in time. The spear scraped past his face and skimmed his straw hat, making him wince from the pain. He got himself together and started spinning his staff like he meant business. He called out that sneaking an attack in a real fight wasn't something a real man would do. Out of nowhere, he switched things up and tried to jab right caught on to what he was about to do. He quickly moved to the side. He reached out and grabbed the bridge rope, locking his grip tight. He shifted his weight and moved to the side. He slipped his hand into his pocket. He chucked a handful of sharp iron caltrops right at his opponent. Jumped back, calling them out for being scared, pretty much saying their move had no chance against him. He used his staff and knocked away the last caltrops, not letting any of them hit him. Moved quick to the side and spit at him. Clocked it right away and just leaned his head to the side, dodging smooth. He couldn't help but grin, realizing wasn't giving up as easily as he expected. He swung his staff hard, messing with him even more, like he was trying to get under his skin about spitting on his girlfriend and calling him clueless. Didn't waste a second. He kicked back, barely dodging the hit. He hit the ground and his hand took the impact. He tossed out more caltrops, spit again, and at the same time swung his leg out for a big kick. At first, the spit didn't even land. He stopped it right in the middle of his move, catching it under his foot like it was nothing. He launched the ball straight at its face. Suddenly let out a yell when his skin started burning right where the spit hit him. He stumbled back, totally thrown off that spit could actually burn like that. His brain was working overtime, trying to figure out if it was some kind of poison user from the Sichuan Tang family. His eyes struggled to focus, everything started going fuzzy. Moved in, looking serious and ready to finish things. He ditched his spear, grabbed a hammer in his right hand and brought it down, aiming straight for his head. Started swinging his staff all over the place, not really aiming, just hoping to land a hit. Meanwhile, kept moving in, not even slowing down. Watched him closely, trying to figure out what move he'd make next. He pulled back just in time, barely missing the next hit. He took a second to catch his breath, keeping his distance so he could chill out and stay focused. He realized out loud that he'd totally misjudged. He never expected a stable hand to be this strong. Even while talking, he kept telling himself something about this had to be off. Nobody could believe would ever do something like that. He learned everything at the Tiger Pit sect, so the way he moved just threw people off. His style was nothing like the usual, totally unpredictable. The panel just shows some documents. They didn't care about looking proper or acting fancy. Started to notice that every part of his body was built for fighting. Yanked the cloak off his neck, not holding back at all. He honestly didn't care what kind of demon or monster he was done with the games. He promised he'd take the guy down himself, no matter what it took. He got ready for a fight, lifting his staff and locking in his stance. Grabbed his spear off the ground, moving quick like he wasn't about to waste a second. There was a string wrapped around his hand. He stepped up, locking in with his own stance, and that dark energy just started swirling around him. He looked totally unbothered, almost like he was thinking needed to chill with all the talking. Both guys stared each other down, eyes locked and not backing off. It was one of those nights where you could just tell something was about to go down. The wind picked up out of nowhere, cutting across the bridge and making the leaves go wild. Both of them tensed up, just waiting for something to happen. As soon as the leaf hit the ground, both of them jumped in at the same time. Their weapons slammed against each other. He got hit with insane power. The hit sent out a blast that shook the whole wooden bridge, making it rattle like it was about to snap. An arm slipped off the bridge and disappeared into the darkness below. When it landed, a scream tore through the night, sending chills down anyone close enough to hear it. Just stood there, totally chill and not even flinching. Stood right in front of him, laughing like he'd lost it. Even with blood pouring out of his cuts, he just kept smiling, barely flinching at all. He let everyone know his arm wasn't cheap, but honestly, he'd do it again. Winning made it all worth it. The staff went straight through his chest, dropping him hard to his knees. Just a couple minutes before this, the sound of his weapons smashing together filled the air. Things got intense real quick. The spear slipped off to the side. He picked up on things fast, almost like his senses were locked in. He switched it up. He went straight for his head with a quick swing. The blade was coming in fast but just grinned, almost like he was actually enjoying it. He turned his body to the side, basically handing over his left arm too, but making it clear he was coming for his heart in exchange. Right then his staff drove right through his chest, blood splattered all over his face. Flashed a huge grin showing all his teeth, looking like he was ready to claim the boy's heart for himself. Stopped for a second, then yanked his staff out. Blood started pouring out of his body. He stood over the guy he just beat, eyes cold. Even though he came out on top, he knew winning cost him way more than he thought it would. He couldn't wrap his head around it, that annoying kid actually looked like trouble. He started to question if grew up surrounded by some wild, messed up stuff. Out of nowhere, he started coughing hard and blood came up. Right then, it hit him that whatever was messed up inside was way worse than he first thought. He raised his staff, aiming straight at. His mind was running wild. This kid was seriously a problem. Leaving him around wasn't an option. He knew he had to end things right then and there. Right as he was about to attack, his whole body just locked up. He couldn't move at all. He was straight up frozen with fear. Spirits started creeping out from behind, twisting around in the dark while his body slowly got back up. Stepped back, eyes wide, totally thrown off by what he was seeing. He wanted to know what was pushing to get back up. Was chasing money, trying to prove something, just stubborn, or maybe in it for someone he cared about. After taking that kind of damage, it was wild to see what kept him going. Pushed himself ahead, hands shaking. He forced his head up like even that took everything he had. He slowly parted his lips. He just lowered his voice and said one word, and you could tell he was scared. Jerked when he heard the noise, his face looking uneasy. He really wanted to know what was talking about. Shot him a cold look, eyes locked in, almost daring him to answer if he actually knew what happens after someone dies. He glanced down at the ground under the bridge, not really wanting to look up. A huge hole had opened up in the ground. Something was coming out from inside it. All around him, spirits just lost it, their pain echoing everywhere. He scrambled hard, trying everything to pull himself up. His tone was ice cold while he laid it out. If you really thought that was waiting for you after dying, no way would you let yourself go out like that. Kind of laughed it off, looking a little uneasy, and tried to play it cool, acting like was just seeing things. Even though he looked steady, his mind was racing. Was on his feet, maybe just because he was that scared of dying. Whatever he just witnessed must hit him hard, giving him this weird kind of strength. Couldn't lie, he was super curious. Still, he decided there was no way he'd risk his own life just to find out. He took a step backward. He lifted his weapon again, determined not to let this be the end. No way he was going out on some random bridge. He pictured himself way older, just chilling in bed when his time finally came. He let out a loud yell and went for another swing with his staff. Was quick and caught the attack with his spear, stopping it right there. His jaw tightened. He stepped up and threw his punch like he had something to prove, locked in and not holding back. Stepped right up to face him, and the two just kept smashing their weapons together over and over. Things got intense. Pulled off a wild move and cut off two of his fingers. Didn't back down, he landed a hard hit on his left side, leaving him bleeding. The floor was streaked with blood and sweat as they kept going, both of them locked in and refusing to quit. Looked down at his missing fingers, clearly annoyed, and shot a cold stare. Even though he just lost 2 fingers because of, looked locked in, making it clear he was coming for him and this wasn't over. Barely had time to process what was happening when a piece of metal shot straight into his eye. He let out a loud yell and stumbled back, pain all over his face. Barely holding it together, he glared at, trying to figure out what he just got hit with. Just sat there totally chill, crunching on those iron caltrops like it was nothing. He made it clear in his own way, wasn't making it out of there alive. Started moving weird, like nerves were getting to him. He started swinging his staff all over the place, yelling for to keep his distance. Kept taking hits, but he wasn't about to go down. His head was spinning, was supposed to be down for good, but he just kept coming. Had no clue what kind of monster he was dealing with. Totally desperate, started yelling about being some kind of demon, and just chucked his staff as hard as he could. The weapon came down hard and slammed right into his head. He took out half of it like it was nothing. Just stopped in his tracks for a second before losing it and laughing hard. He tilted his head back, absolutely sure he'd come out on top. In his head, he was basically celebrating his win already. He scooped up into his hand, charged ahead with a huge grin, and made it clear he was about to finish troubles for good, all in one shot. Right as he was about to make his move, slid out of the way faster than anyone expected. Just stared eyes wide, not believing what he was seeing. Really went for it and cut the bridge rope right in front of him. He got totally overwhelmed by fear. He was sure he'd just smashed the head in. No way, he was still moving. When did he even cut the rope? The bridge started breaking apart. Just stood there on the collapsing boards, not moving an inch, while was straight up booking it to get across before everything came crashing down. He got to the other side out of breath, but his chest was going wild, like something heavy was weighing him down. Out of nowhere, these spirits showed up behind him and their voices started messing with his head. He started freaking out. There was no way he could still be alive with injuries like that. Seriously, nobody survives stuff like that. Maybe he was just hanging on barely before it was all over. Still, couldn't shake this gut feeling. Was never the type to play by the usual rules. He turned his head and what he saw next totally freaked him out. He spotted up in the air. The stable hand yanked his spear back, thanks to the string wrapped around his hand, and launched it straight ahead. The spear cut through the air, landing exactly where he wanted. The blade went right through his head. Blood started running down his face, but even then he let out one last laugh. In that moment his mind flashed back to the first time they'd met. He used to think was just some regular guy, but then out of nowhere, he started seeing him as something way more messed up. As he ran out of strength, he finally let out what he'd been holding back. Wasn't just some regular guy, but he wasn't a total monster either. He was known as the God of Death. After nailed with his spear and saw the demon slump back against the cliff, he started dropping right along with it. As he fell, his hand shot out for the string on the spear without even thinking. He snagged it just in time, but now he was stuck there. He was just hanging there in the air, body trembling hard. Every muscle hurt and he clenched his jaw, trying to deal with the pain. In that moment he honestly felt like he was falling apart. His head throbbed like someone had just cracked it open. His insides were trashed and his leg was snapped. Still, he kept telling himself that as long as he was breathing, he could bounce back. Right then he felt this dark energy buzzing around him, and the evil spirit vibes started curling around his injuries like smoke. He knew what was up right away. This was the blood-stained cursed demon art, one of those top-level demon techniques. He shut his eyes, thinking back to how it all went down. Once told everyone that the only reason he could keep chasing revenge, even with his body falling apart, was thanks to the supreme demon arts keeping him going with some wild healing powers. Thought about how he got another shot at life for the same reason, and for a second he wondered if he should actually be thankful for it. Lightning slammed into the cliff, lighting up the whole spot and hitting hard. The impact shook the ground, making rocks and chunks of mud break off and tumble down around him. The body ripped itself off the wall. The ground started shaking, and then a landslide just crashed down. Glanced up as the debris started crashing down. He stared at the mess above him, not having it at all. He got blasted so hard he lost his grip and dropped all the way down to the bottom of the ravine. Mud and chunks of broken rock started crashing down on him, and the rain just made everything fall even harder. Once things calmed down, he ended up with half his body stuck under a pile of debris, just lying there nearby. The evil spirits started messing with him, their voices harsh and mean. They kept throwing insults, telling him he should just give up and die. Over and over they said he deserved to be buried alive, never letting up for a second. The argument got louder, but everyone froze up when someone else showed up behind them. All the spirits turned around to see who it was. The spirit stumbled forward, heading right for, crashed onto his back, totally wiped out. He stared right at the spirit as it let out a low growl, realizing he knew exactly what it was. Called it out straight up, using its title and name. He called it the staff demon. The ghost just kept going. The creature kept growling and swung this ghostly staff at him, was barely hanging on. He dug through the mud and broken stuff, finally getting loose enough to stand up. He called out the name again, this time not holding back, sounding way more confident, when the spirit came at him one last time. Suddenly spoke up, his voice cutting through the noise as he took charge. Staff demon, his name's. The attack stopped right before it could hit him. The spirit let out a painful scream, its body starting to fall apart right in front of everyone. Pale flames twisted around and slammed straight into Kai, flying everywhere as it all got sucked into him. The moment the spirit was completely inside him, it was like everything just stopped for a second. Just laughed to himself and thought it was kind of ridiculous. A ghost that was fully powered up was no joke. It would take a long time to get it under control. He said taking in that spirit would give him the boost he needed to level up from the compression stage to the remain stage. He let out a tired sound, pulled himself up, and let everyone know it was time to head back. Pain shot through his leg and he dropped to the ground, grabbing at the spot and muttering to himself, annoyed. He knew once he got back, he'd have to chill and get his body right before trying to mess with the Ren and Meridians again. He reached for the string hanging off what was left of his broken weapon. He noticed the busted spear and made a face, kinda annoyed that it wasn't even good enough to use as a walking stick. He turned his head and spotted it. Spotty was just there, not moving at all, rain coming down hard and soaking everything, even the messed up skin. Right next to him was the staff, that weapon everyone recognized, the one that made people call him a demon. Was caught off guard and hobbled over to grab it. Once he picked it up and realized how heavy it was, everything started to make sense. He pointed out that if it had shown up with a real spear instead of just a staff, he realized it should have been him who didn't make it. He stared down at the busted weapon he was still holding, not really sure what to do next. He looked at his spear and realized it needed a sharper tip, or he'd end up just as powerless as that demon on the ground. A little while later, dragged himself into town, soaked from the heavy rain that just wouldn't let up, barely able to walk right at midnight. Blood dripped down from his leg, leaving a skinny trail behind as he leaned hard on his heavy staff just to keep moving. The wind was wild, howling through the empty streets, and his wet clothes were stuck to his skin, making everything even worse. He took a couple steps, but then he started to lose his balance. He crashed straight into a wet stone wall, his shoulder taking the hit. He let out a frustrated click of his tongue, annoyed that even after taking in all that power from the top demons, his body just wouldn't bounce back fast. He realized this was the first time since coming back that he'd gone all out in a fight. He realized things got pretty rough after everything went down. Rain kept hitting him hard, each drop stinging like he was getting poked by a bunch of tiny needles. His staff was heavy, almost like he was carrying a metal pipe, and his bag on his shoulder definitely wasn't making things any easier. He figured he'd just shut his eyes for a sec, but everything went fuzzy and he almost lost his balance, stumbling ahead. While he zoned out, his mind replayed calm voice, reminding him that probably had his own reasons for keeping things to himself. He always felt at home with the Tiger Pit sect. As long as he was there, those people had his back, they were basically his family. A quick memory popped into his head and his eyes opened a bit wider as it clicked. He remembered, yeah, family, that's where he could actually chill and feel at home. He couldn't help but grin to himself as that idea popped into his head. He forced himself back up and kept moving through the storm, even though every step hurt. After a bit, he muttered to himself that this place just wasn't his scene. Earlier, over by the Tiger Pit section, was chilling by herself in her room. She sat down at her desk, getting ready for whatever came next. She let out a long breath, thinking about how wild the world had gotten. Martial arts was always tough, only the strongest made it, and everyone else got left behind. She realized that being a good person wasn't about playing it safe or backing down. Only the strong ones could really stick to what they believe in and never give up, no matter what. She thought back to how her dad always lived by that rule and made sure she got it too. She grabbed the scroll sitting by her arm and unrolled it, taking her time. Her eyes locked onto the words, soaking them in. In her head, she realized she'd picked the same route for herself. When she unrolled the scroll, it showed an acceptance letter from the Alliance's Academy. She thought about how the Academy was basically run by the Alliance. They let in guys and girls who were between 16 and 18 years old. He put in work, turning them into the kind of guys everyone knew would make it big one day. He ran things in Ho. Sighed again, covering her face with both hands. She realized she'd actually snuck off and taken the entrance exam without telling anyone, and honestly it still didn't feel real that she got in. Her whole idea was to finish school, level up her skills, and then use all that to help her family get ahead, but things weren't going exactly how she pictured. She squeezed her fist, stress all over her face, thinking about how wild those tuition costs were. If she just had the cash, life would honestly be way simpler. Out of nowhere, she suddenly remembered. At the banquet, started asking for his money back. She shook her head, locking in on the fact that getting the Tiger Pit sect out safe was the top priority. No way was she about to let herself regret picking their lives over any amount of cash. She got up from her chair and pushed open the window next to her. The cold air hit her face, waking her up a bit. She let out another breath, just taking it all in. She thought stepping outside for some fresh air might help her chill out and clear her head. Right now, A was out in the pouring rain, leading her horse along the street. She didn't feel any better, not even a little. She just lost it for a second, throwing her hands up and wondering why even the weather seemed out to get her. The horse next to her started jumping around and tossing its head, which just made her even more annoyed. She gritted her teeth, wondering if Bong, her horse, was just chilling and having fun while she was totally stressed out. Rain poured down and suddenly there was this loud thud close by. The sound was so clear it broke right through the noise of the storm. A narrowed her eyes, trying to figure out where that weird noise was coming from. She nudged Bong, letting him know they should go see what's up. As soon as they rounded the corner, she noticed the dark blood on the ground right away. She stared at the numbers, not really believing what she was seeing. Her voice shook a bit as she muttered to herself, trying to process it all. She couldn't get her head around how someone could bleed that much. Started moving out from the dark up ahead, his shape barely showing through the gloom. He could only see it when lightning flashed across the street, lighting everything up for a split second. Froze for a second, his heart racing. He backed away, trying to figure out if the shadow in front of him was actually a person or something way creepier. As a voice came through. From somewhere deep in the shadows, a voice answered, basically just saying he looked just like himself. A just figured he had to be a ghost at this point, so he just said it out loud like it was obvious. Glanced down at himself, not really sure what was going on, but he didn't bother to explain anything. He started to walk off, and could tell right away from the way he moved that this guy was actually alive. She yelled out, trying to get him to stop. While he was leaving, she quickly dug through her stuff. He reached down and grabbed something from a little pouch by his feet. She told him it was just a wound salve, nothing fancy, but it got the job done. If he ever needed something for a scrape or cut, this was the stuff to use. She said she had no clue what happened to him. Even though she usually stayed out of fights, seeing someone struggling right there made it impossible for her to just walk away. She mentioned that if he really didn't want it, he could just toss it. Let out a quick smirk. He crouched down, grabbed the pouch, and checked it out without saying a word. He stood there for a second not saying anything, then grabbed the bag hanging off his staff and gave it a quick swing. A instantly got on edge, not expecting him to move like that. He blurted it out, his voice shaky. Didn't bother explaining himself. He just dropped the sack right in front of her, not even looking up. He just told her straight up to toss it on the horse. He turned around and started walking off again. She kept calling out for him, not letting up, really wanting him to stop and just tell her what was going on. She kept her eyes on the sack for a while, her mind running wild with all kinds of thoughts. Seeing how big it was and catching that weird metal smell mixed with rain, she started to get nervous about what could be inside. She couldn't stop thinking about what might be inside, like, what if it was actually a severed head? If it really was, she knew she'd have to call the cops, no question. She dropped down to a squat, kind of nervous, and shut her eyes tight. With her hands shaking a bit, she started to open the sack, getting ready for whatever messed up thing might be inside. She finally glanced over. She froze for a second, totally caught off guard. Inside, she spotted the stolen cash from the tiger pit, grabbed by that staff demon. The moment it clicked, she just froze. She snapped her head to where just dipped out, eyes locked on the spot he disappeared. He caught sight of him right as he rounded the next corner. A rushed after him, calling out and wanting answers about how he got the stolen cash back. She rounded the corner, ready to see him right there. Her eyes suddenly went wide when he didn't see anything left, just a puddle of blood on the ground. There was a sack just sitting by her feet. Lightning lit up the street for a second and was just standing there by herself in the pouring rain. Her voice was shaky as she spoke into the chaos, trying to figure out who was out there and what was even going on. Stepped up to the edge, took a breath, and just jumped straight off the roof like he'd already made up his mind. He hit the ground hard, the pain hitting him fast and making him let out a groan. For a bit he just stayed there, not moving at all. He took a second to catch his breath before trying to get up. Right then he noticed someone or something close by. He reached for his weapon without even thinking and chucked it into a haystack close by. His eyes got sharp, and in his head he was sure something or someone was creeping around. He started to wonder who'd even be out here this late. Right as he was about to head out, a sudden voice broke the silence. Wu Yen showed up looking totally confused at first, but then his whole vibe changed once he saw who it was. He spotted and just lit up, clearly relieved to see him. Glanced over when he heard the voice, instantly knowing who it was. He let out a silent sigh, clearly annoyed. It was that guy again. Wu Yen just wouldn't let up. Tonight really wasn't feeling up for any of his nonsense. Wu Yen spotted him and just couldn't hold back, running over like he hadn't seen him in years, all hyped up and throwing questions about where had disappeared to. Meanwhile, his patience was already running thin. He tightened his fist, thinking to himself how annoying this guy always managed to be. Wu Yen pulled up fast before it could even finish thinking, basically yelling at him with that worried energy. He called his lifesaver and acted like he'd been on a mission to find him, even whining that his meat and rice cakes had gone cold. Just rolled his eyes, annoyed, thinking Wu Yen somehow always found fresh ways to get on his nerves. Wu Yen spotted all the bruises on and immediately started checking him over. He got loud, clearly worried about what went down and who had the guts to mess with their youngest teammate. You could tell he was fired up and ready to throw down with whoever did this, no questions asked. Barely gave him a glance, shoving his hand aside and telling him to quiet down. Without wasting time, told Wu to head over to their master and grab the herbs he'd asked for earlier. Wu seemed kinda lost for a second, but nodded while started rattling off the list of stuff he needed. He saw dragon's blood, persimmon calyx, fenugreek flaxseed piper, and longan fruit lined up. Wu Yen started scribbling everything down, clearly stressing about how insane the list was. He couldn't believe he was supposed to track down all those ingredients right now. Barely reacted and just told him to head over to Ika to get what he needed. Wu Yen's eyes went wide when it hit him who the guy was talking about. He said the name again in his head, Master Su, the boss of the Howling Tiger Escort Bureau, and out of nowhere he started freaking out. He looked at totally thrown off, wondering what was even thinking. How was planning to talk to someone that important just to get some herbs, but just stayed cool, not backing down at all. He explained that if Wu said it was for him, they'd definitely hand over whatever he needed. Wu Yen tightened his fists, clearly annoyed. None of this added up for him, and he just couldn't get himself to throw a punch at this stubborn guy. He turned to head out, letting out a sigh. He figured he'd just go along with it, thinking he owed his lifesaver a favor anyway. On his way, he started wondering what he was even supposed to say when he got there. Just told him to tell everyone it was from, saying they'd get what he meant. Wu Yen glanced over at, checking his face for any reaction. After sizing him up for a bit, he figured he'd just say the stable master was the one who sent him. Waited until the guy was out of sight, then started sending his kai through his body. The air felt thick around him when the energy kicked in. He checked where he was at, realizing his staff demon rank had reached the 10th step of bone carapace. Right in front of him, this huge red door started to show up out of nowhere. He just stared at it, all serious, trying to figure out what was about to happen. He quietly realized that to get it open, he'd have to stab into his own immune meridian and let the blood flow out. He swapped it out for a spiritual elixir instead. It wasn't safe at all. He remembered that all his were already unlocked when he fought the staff demon. Now, he started thinking maybe he just lost too much blood. He glanced over at a ghost hanging around and made up his mind. The last bit of elixir was getting swapped out for the staff demon's own soul. Locked his eyes on the spirit, his stare getting sharper. The ghost freaked out and started screaming when reached out his hand. He reached out and grabbed the strand of spiritual power, yanked the spirit closer, and it totally lost it, thrashing around and crying out as he held on. After a few seconds, the pushback just stopped. The spirit got pulled in all the way and disappeared. Out of nowhere, Wu Yen showed up at the corner, clearly surprised to see. He walked up, his voice shaky, still thinking about the weird stuff had said to him earlier. He wanted answers about who really was, but just stood there, didn't say a word, and picked up the sack like nothing happened. He shut Wu Yen down quick, making it clear he wasn't up for talking. Wu Yen got all flustered, couldn't get his words out, and just ended up staying quiet. Walked into a room close by, tossing out his orders as he went without even glancing back. He told Wu Yen to keep everyone out until he got back. If anything went sideways, Wu Yen was supposed to let Master know right away. Wu Yen couldn't believe what just happened. He was about to say something, but just stayed quiet and watched as walked in and disappeared. Found a spot in the dark room and sat down, closing his eyes to chill for a bit. As he tried to clear his mind, he couldn't help but start thinking about magic, what it really was and how it worked. He thought about how, after someone got past the skull meridian and leveled up to dual principles, nobody could really tell if their strength came from fighting skills or straight-up magic. He started thinking about the guy who kicked off the whole spear demon path. He couldn't help but wonder where it ended up. Maybe the martial alliance and the sect were still chasing him down, or maybe was still running things as the martial god general in the heavenly demon sect. Started wondering if was somewhere out there, maybe looking for guys like him and to join up. His thoughts started drifting even more. He started thinking back to something that happened to him before. He pictured himself just wandering by himself through a wrecked battlefield. In that vision he got to the spot where his master used to stand. Right in front of him, that huge red door showed up again. He was just about to open it when he suddenly heard a voice he knew all too well shout his name. A was standing behind him, wanting to know if he was actually about to dip. He chucked a potato right at. He snatched it out of the air like it was nothing. Managed a small smile, calling him brother one last time as the huge door started to open with a loud creak. Gave a small smile back and quietly hoped his brother would be okay. Out of nowhere, this super bright light took over everything, and just like that the memory slipped away. Snapped awake, lying on the hay where he'd been crashed out. He let out a deep breath, thinking to himself if what he just did actually worked. He sat up straight and looked over at the door. He figured the slacker probably just stayed out there the whole time, not even bothering to come in. He opened the door and saw Wu Yen just passed out on the floor. The door bumped Wu's head and he woke up fast, looking pretty confused. His whole body was covered in this nasty smell that wouldn't go away. Wu Yen stepped back fast, clearly worried about what was going on with him. He checked on to make sure he was okay, but then almost lost it because the smell coming from the room was brutal. Headed off, crunching leaves echoing in the quiet night. His mind started spinning again. He realized he'd finally made it to the highest level of least training, basically the top spot that every martial family respected. He knew he was ready. Now it was time to focus on who he was going after next. He jumped up, landing easy on the floating leaves like it was nothing. He started rising off the ground. Dark eyes started swirling all around him, wrapping him up in this weird, shadowy energy. Glowing wings started to appear behind him, giving off this unreal vibe. Staring down at the town, his face got way more serious. In his head, he was already planning his next move. After settling things with the clan boss, he was coming for the Black Sect next. They used to run on Wei but fell off, still one of the top 5 families though. His energy amped up, the air around him felt heavy, and he locked in on one last name, the clan. At the Tiger Pit Sect's base, Jenin was chilling with his wife, just kicking back and having a calm drink together. He let it slip that the family sent out an invite. This time their big banquet was happening way earlier than normal. Guilin couldn't help but wonder why their group even made the guest list, especially since the event was packed with all the top Orthodox sects from Anhui. Jenin told them the Zhou family, who people also call the family, used to be the main crew running things for, but now they just disappeared. It looked like their own group was getting tapped to take their spot. Grabbed the pot and filled up his cup again. Even though he hadn't done anything wrong, he knew nobody was about to treat him nice. Nodded serious, knowing that in martial arts power was everything. Being weak just meant getting stepped on, and the family was basically untouchable. Everyone else barely even registered. Before he could keep going, cut in, telling him not to overthink it and bringing up the latest news. The family's star daughter who'd been at academy was coming back. Hearing that, his face lit up. He knew exactly who she was. Lady the Sword Blossom herself. Nodded, saying it was true. In the wives group chats, everyone was talking. Word was the banquet wasn't just for fun. It was basically a way for the family to show off their daughter, let everyone know she was out there, and hint she was ready to start making connections. Leaned back, cracking up as he took a sip from his cup. Honestly, the idea sounded pretty good to him. He could listen to some dude hype up his daughter all day without getting bored. He put his cup on the table and got real for a second. Deep down, he believed was just as good as Lady, no cap. Just stood there catching what Jenin said and trying to process it. He wasn't sure why she had to say something like that, but Jenin didn't sugarcoat anything. She just laid it out, had everything going for her, looks, skills, personality, all of it. The only thing missing was something Jenin kept to herself, not wanting to make a big deal out of it, but it still stung. He thought about whether he was actually a good parent. He let out a sigh, knowing deep down he was embarrassed as a dad, and realized he had to help her move ahead before time ran out. He finished his drink, and right then someone shouted from the doorway. His dad and mom had just shown up. Came running in, totally out of breath, looking like something was seriously wrong. She sprinted straight for her parents, yelling as she went. Lit up, seriously happy. His daughter finally called him dad again, something he'd really missed. She didn't react at all though, just kept it moving like nothing happened. He rolled out a scroll and shoved it in front of them, making it clear this was serious, and they had to check it out right now. Jenin glanced at the paper and his hands started to shake. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was an acceptance letter from Academy. Just froze, hand over her mouth, not believing what she saw. Her daughter had actually pulled off a perfect score in every subject, straight up #1 in the whole school. Couldn't hold it in. He jumped up, threw open the window, and started yelling for the whole neighborhood to hear. He was already thinking about throwing a massive party to celebrate. Stopped him right there. He wasn't about to let the conversation go anywhere until they talked about paying for school. Her parents both jumped in right away, telling her not to stress about anything. Her dad promised he'd find a way to get the money, even if he had to sell off the important stuff from their sect. Shaw was all in too, just telling to keep her head down and focus on her schoolwork. Just shook her head, spun around, and pulled a heavy sack along with her. She let it fall and everything just dumped out everywhere. Her dad just froze, not believing what he was seeing. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. She stood up straight, letting everyone know they could chill now. She came through with all the coins they needed. A few days passed, and ended up hanging out by the riverside again. She chilled under a tree's shade while he handled the mosquito repellent, making sure they wouldn't get eaten alive. She stared at him for a while, realizing things just weren't the same as before. Ever since showed up, life had actually started getting better, even if it didn't totally make sense. She came over, talking in that chill, playful way she always does. Honestly, she was like his good luck charm. She got a little closer, eyeing him like she was trying to figure him out. She noticed he'd been kind of MIA lately, and she was curious about where he kept disappearing to. It was pretty clear she thought he seemed a bit different than before. Just sat there not saying anything, like he didn't even hear what she said. He was just straight up annoyed. She slapped his back, making him snap out of whatever deep thoughts he was stuck in. She dropped down next to him out of nowhere and nudged him again. She couldn't figure out why he ignored her call earlier. Didn't expect her to get that close out of nowhere, so he kind of froze up and just mumbled something random. He was actually locked in, coming up with a way to take down the family. Out of nowhere, he remembered himself talking years back, telling the story of how an old dude from the family teamed up with the Joe family and the Black Path sect. They all worked together to hide what really went down with the Tiger Pit sect getting wrecked. The family was right in the middle of it. They had the power, but instead of stopping things, they just covered for the people causing trouble and let things get worse. He thought about how the family was basically a big deal in Anhui. Everyone let them do their thing because they were in charge of keeping all the different groups in line. But even in their own crew, things were getting shady. Some groups just ignored all the messed up stuff happening to smaller groups, acting like it wasn't their problem. Taking cash to keep quiet. Had an elder's name sitting right there on his kill list. He was just another guy who turned his back on him, sticking the knife in when he least expected it. Back when he was alive before, his eyes tightened up without him even thinking about it as that idea popped into his head. Sat next to him and started talking softly. She wanted to know if the other kids were still giving him a hard time. Tried to say it wasn't true, but she jumped in before he could finish. She made it clear that just giving warnings wasn't enough this time. Things had already gone too far. She looked straight at him and gave a small smile, almost like she already knew what he was thinking. Without hesitating, she asked if wanted to head out with her. He tensed up. She kept going. She'd gotten into academy, which was a big deal. For him, her story hit a nerve. He remembered Yi Yang saying almost the same thing. Yi Yang was always at the top, but money held him back, so he never got to go. Sometimes he wondered how different everything would turn out if he'd gotten that shot. Spoke up, his voice calm but steady. He was locked in on getting into academy, ready to learn new things, meet people, and then head back home. His goal was clear. He wanted to help his family level up. She leaned closer like she was about to drop some real talk. She saw that always kept to himself, always on his grind, and definitely had skills. She let him know that if he was cool with it, he should roll with her to academy. She promised things there would be way easier than what he was dealing with now. Barely smiled, just a tiny grin you'd miss if you weren't paying attention. He realized this was the kind of life she always wanted but never got before. After things finally calmed down, she wouldn't need him around anymore. From there, she'd be able to handle things on her own. Waited kind of anxious, hoping would say yes. After a pause, finally responded he wasn't totally sure though. He said he'd go, but only if things worked out a certain way. She took a step back, folded her arms, and started messing with him. Looked like she was trying to play it cool and act like she wasn't interested. He figured that was a yes for now. She pointed out that academy was pretty far, so if he had any business left like debts, stuff to sort out, or goodbyes, he should handle it before leaving. She even shot him a look, making sure he wasn't out here owing people money. Stared at the ground while messing with the fire. He answered in a low voice, saying he still had people who owed him. Sighs went wide. Debts, he had debts. She grabbed his arm, locked in and serious. It was clear she wanted him to handle it, track down every bit he was owed, no excuses. She didn't wait around for an answer. She turned and walked straight to her horse, tossing a quick shout back at him. Got up, taking his time, eyes following her as she headed off. He mumbled under his breath so quietly that no one could catch what he was saying, no matter what. Payback had to happen. His face got serious real quick. He flashed a creepy, wide grin. In his head, he was all about taking everything, every coin, every bit of blood, nothing left behind. A couple days went by. The family estate started buzzing as more guests showed up for the big banquet. When the Tiger Pit crew showed up at the gate, kept it respectful, bowing as they walked in. She greeted them and mentioned how far they'd come. Didn't miss a beat, bowing back and giving a nod to the escort for their effort. Jinan also threw in a thanks, saying the journey was smooth because of escort. After that, he motioned for everyone to head inside the estate. The stable boys from the Tiger Pit sect trailed behind, their eyes wide as they took in the family estate. Marble paths, fancy pillars, and massive gardens stretched out everywhere, making the place look unreal. Wu Yen looked around, eyes going wide. He couldn't believe how massive and impressive the family place was. The whole scene kind of left him speechless. All the guys around him looked good. Out of nowhere, she looked really pretty. The guys heard some girls getting hyped nearby, and it instantly caught their attention. A bunch of girls suddenly swarmed, tossing questions at him nonstop. They were super curious about where he was from, if he was doing all this by himself, and how old he actually was. Some of them couldn't help but point out how good-looking he was, talking about his build and strong arms. A couple even tried to help him out by wiping sweat from his face. Just found the whole thing pretty annoying. The stable boys stood off to the side, watching with jealous eyes. As they watched, they couldn't help but talk behind his back, throwing shade and calling him a jerk. One of them tried to remind the group that they were supposed to be cool with, but that didn't stop the whispers. Wu Yen couldn't hold it in and just let out a groan, basically giving up on controlling himself. Eventually caught on that these guys were watching, and one of them freaked out, trying to cover it up by saying noticed them. Right away, dipped out from the group of girls like nothing happened. He popped up out of nowhere, standing right in front of the stable boys. He put his hand on Wu Yen's shoulder, gave him a nod, and let him know it was his turn to handle things. Wu stood there, totally thrown off, trying to catch before he dipped, but the dude was already gone. The girls looked annoyed, staring hard and wanting answers about where the good-looking guy had disappeared to, trying to fix things before it got too awkward. Wu Yen tried to impress them, pointing at himself in a way that was kind of awkward. He tried to come off smooth, but his voice totally cracked, making things even more awkward. The girls stared down at him, clearly not impressed. He walked off, throwing shade at what just happened once they were gone. Wu Yen just stood there, eyes glued to the floor. He didn't say much, but a tear slid down his face as he thought about and called him out in his head. That afternoon, he headed over to the stables. Was chilling up on the carriage roof, just watching everything go down. The overseer down below was on a power trip, yelling at the stable boys and telling them to hurry up since the banquet was about to start. He kept calling them lazy and didn't let up for a second. He grabbed a stick and started swinging hard, hitting one of the guys over and over. The whole time he was being sarcastic, messing with the kid like he couldn't believe how wild he was acting. He started going off about how expensive the meat was, throwing insults and calling him useless. The boy just pulled his knees in and started yelling for someone to help. After spitting on him, the overseer started ranting about how much stuff he had to do and then walked off. He landed a kick right to Abel Boy's head, then told him to get the sacrifice ready for the blood oath thing. He wanted to know if it was all set. The new stable boy gave a quick bow and said he brought the sacrifice in, still with all its blood, just like they told him. But then, almost mumbling, he confessed something wasn't right. The overseer's face went tight with anger as he pressed to find out what could even be wrong. The stable boy told everyone the wolf they caught was massive, so big that even moving it was a serious struggle. The overseer swung his stick again, getting fired up and yelling that they should just found anyone to help out. The boy, totally freaked out, sprinted off to get the rest of the crew. The overseer looked annoyed, shook his head, and pretty much decided they weren't worth his time. Right then, he caught something moving around in one of the train cars. The fabric cover moved a little. He thought the sacrifice was probably still breathing under there. He grabbed his sword, annoyed that the stable boys hadn't bothered to make sure the animal was actually dead. In his head, he was already thinking about how he'd get back at them, even joking to himself about chopping off one of their legs when they showed up again. He jumped into the carriage, annoyed that these annoying chores kept him from actually having fun at the party. He walked in and started looking around, calling out as he tried to figure out where the wolf was hiding. After some searching, he finally tracked it down and grabbed it. He dropped down next to it and gave its head a few quick pats, At first, he was just clowning on the. He thought it was just a wolf cub and couldn't figure out why everyone was making such a big deal about it. Out of nowhere, the wolf started moving, catching the overseer off guard. He stepped back, eyes wide, totally thrown by how massive the wolf actually was. Realizing its real size hit him all at once, and he couldn't help but freak out for a second. He just started cracking up, totally losing it. He was hyped after finding the wolf. In his head, he knew a beast this size would make the blood oath ceremony a total win, and honestly, he couldn't help but laugh at how, for once, the usually useless workers actually pulled off something big. He started picturing how the family head would be all smiles about it. He didn't notice when a rope slipped over his neck from behind. Stayed tucked away in the shadows, trying not to get noticed. From the shadows, someone yanked the rope tight and started lifting the guy up. The overseer panicked, scrambling to break free and looking around like he was hoping someone would bail him out. Stood behind a slab of meat, just chilling, and started talking. He mentioned he'd been curious about how the family manor was built on the inside. The guy fought back, clenching his jaw and struggling to get words out while something pressed hard against his neck. Grinned in the dark and yanked even harder. He let the guy know he wasn't really looking for a conversation. The guy just lost all his strength and dropped to the ground. Just after that, the guy's spirit showed up right next to his own body. Let go of the rope and just went straight for the spirit, grabbing its head. He looked down at the body, eyes totally unreadable. To him, it seemed like dead guys just kept it real way more than anyone still breathing. Outside the carriage, the noise from people yelling bounced around everywhere. A bunch of stable boys pulled the Tiger Pit crew across the yard, basically forcing them to help out. Wu tried to break free, making it super clear they weren't with. He called out their squad, Tiger Pit, so everyone knew exactly who they were. The stable boy kept saying sorry and tried to make a deal, telling them he'd hook them up with some food if they just helped move one wolf. Wu wasn't having it. He shoved the guy off, clearly irritated. Meanwhile, the boy glanced around, kind of confused, trying to figure out where that one warrior disappeared to. He accidentally ran into another stable boy who called him out for just standing there. Not wanting any trouble, he freaked out a bit and nodded right away. They took a quick breather, then a bunch of them teamed up and somehow got the massive wolf off the ground, hanging it upside down on this big pole. They all counted out loud, trying to stay in sync, and then started moving forward together, barely keeping their balance. Wu really wasn't having it. He just couldn't understand why he got dragged into this mess. Meanwhile, the stable boy kept saying thanks and swore he'd hook Wu up for helping out. Wu made it clear he expected that reward, no excuses, and started wondering out loud why the wolf weighed so much. Like, did it have puppies or something? The kid, looking a bit stressed, said he'd pay him back with 4 servings of meat. Wu didn't hesitate. He was all in once he heard that offer. The big dinner kicked off. The servants were hustling around, dropping off hot food at every table for the guests hanging out. Up on the tallest building at the estate, 2 people are just chilling on the balcony, watching everything go down below. There was an old guy just chilling back in a rocking chair. Everyone knew him as the Sword King, the guy who used to run the family. He sat there just watching everything go down, looking like he had nothing to do and honestly seemed kind of bored with it all. Pa stood next to him, leading the family these days. He pointed out to his dad that things in Anhui were still off after the Zhou family got wiped out, and said if the Sword King showed up now, everything would probably settle down. Let out a sigh, clearly used to hearing this same point before, but Pa wasn't about to drop it. He broke down how the Zhou family was basically a side branch of the clan, with Zhou, who was related to, calling the shots. Still had a solid rep with the Council of Elders, so the connection was legit. The Sword King already knew what was up. He remembered seeing Zhou Yang around a few times, thinking the kid always seemed sharp and stood out. Pa kept going, saying that now everyone knew the real story about Zhou. Everyone knew Zhou was working with the Black Path sect, but the family had to find solid proof. He stood tall, totally confident in what he was doing, never once embarrassed about sticking to what he believed was right. Brushed it off, acting like it was no big deal if some weak guys didn't make it. He also called out his son for always getting way too worked up over stuff that honestly wasn't important. Pa let out a groan, clearly annoyed. He thought it was wild to compare the Zhou family and the Black Path sect to a bunch of crickets, especially since whatever happened was ancient history. Right when things were getting interesting between them, jumped in and cut it off. His oldest daughter showed up and gave a quick bow. She let everyone know it was nearly time to head into the banquet. Nam Pa lit up right away when he started talking about his daughter, kind of proud as he looked over at his dad, trying to see if he noticed how much she'd changed. The Sword King just grinned, tossing out a question about whether she'd met any decent guys at school yet. Pa couldn't believe what he was hearing. He leaned in, practically yelling at his dad, saying she was way too young to even think about marriage. Just brushed him off, annoyed by all the yelling. Kept it chill, agreeing with her grandpa and saying she should probably get married soon to help out the family. Pa paused, not really sure about it, since the whole idea of marriage just seemed way too soon for her. His whole vibe changed fast. He looked stressed and blurted out if she was talking to another guy behind his back. She shut it down right away, chimed in saying things could be different after graduation and maybe she was just getting a head start. Her grandfather jumped in, saying she should find a guy from somewhere else instead of settling for the boring dudes around here. Nam Pa wasn't having it, and made it clear he was calling the shots when it came to who she'd marry. Just brushed it off, acting like his son would end up with some random boring dude anyway. Not wanting to stick with that topic, Pa switched it up and told his daughter to remember the blood oath ceremony coming up soon. She nodded as he broke down every part of the ritual, making sure she got what was going on. He explained that they would let the blood from a huge, wild animal flow out into a copper tray. After that, anyone wanting to team up would take a drink, one after another. He rested his hand on his daughter's shoulder and let her know she was the one who'd used the family's old sword for the blood ceremony. This was the main job, basically, the core of the whole event. Promised herself she'd go all in to make her family look good. Pa thought they should just head to the banquet right away, so he told his dad to get up and go with him. He glanced down and spotted someone that instantly got on his nerves. He gave his dad a quick nod, said he was heading out first and left the room. Right before stepping inside, he looked back at his daughter and made sure she got the message. He wasn't playing around. She wasn't letting go of that sword for anything. No way was she letting anyone else get their hands on it. Stared at her sacred weapon, totally lost. He was just standing there trying to figure out why something like that would even go down. Down at the banquet hall, when the group from Tiger Pit showed up, people started paying attention. One guest glanced over and quietly assumed they got the invite this time, not the Joe family. He always thought the Tiger Pit sect took out the Joe family and the Black Path crew, but seeing them roll up now made him rethink everything. Some dude sitting close by started going off on him, telling him to get real. He pointed out that the Tiger Pit sect was basically broke and had no clout, so there was no way they could have wiped out the Joe family or the Black Path sect. Both of them cracked up, not even trying to hide it. Heard them roasting him and his hands balled into fists, his face clearly showing how mad he was. Spotted her dad's face and could tell right away that something was off. She kept it to herself, not wanting to say anything out loud, but she couldn't help worrying. Out of nowhere, someone with a chill, upbeat vibe called out from behind, wondering why everyone looked so down, and spun around to see who it was. An old guy stood there messing with his long beard, clearly having fun with the situation. He threw out a question, kind of teasing, like he already knew the answer, acting like he'd put in real effort on the deal and couldn't believe anyone would have a problem with it. All around the hall, people tried to look chill, but their smiles were clearly fake as they glanced his way. As soon as they realized he was under the crew's protection, you could see everyone relax a bit. The guy standing there was Peng Sang, the elder who basically ran the fire palace for the family. He set it up so every group that showed up had to roll with the family. The family promised to share some of their secret skills, but in return, each group had to drop some cash for protection every few months. Even though everyone kept smiling for the crowd, deep down they all thought the old man was sly and only out for himself. One guy even tried to hype it up, making a big deal about getting picked to learn the family's secret moves, then laughed it off like he was just joking. Peng Sang gave a quick smirk, clearly liking what he saw, then turned to check out the Tiger Pit sect. He threw out a playful question, wondering if the guy in front was really the leader everyone kept talking about. En and his daughter both bowed, showing respect, and En made it clear he was honestly glad to meet the guy. Peng Sang let out a laugh and dropped his hand onto Jen En's shoulder, making it clear there was no need for all that formal stuff since they'd be hanging out a lot. He brought up how the whole thing with the Joe family was pretty rough, then squeezed Jen En's shoulder a little. Spiritual energy spiked while he basically trolled the other guy, making it clear he never blamed him for anything. He let everyone know he'd only brought them in because he actually trusted them. He flashed a sly grin and told them the blood oath was actually a solid win for the Tiger Pit crew. Holding on tight, he said once they picked up the family's secret sword moves, their squad would level up for real and cash in enough to handle protection payments without breaking a sweat. He looked over at and without holding back pointed out that her last arranged marriage totally flopped. He said maybe she should just go for being a concubine to some rich, older dude. Apparently that kind of thing was trending with younger people lately, and honestly he thought it made more sense than ending up as the main wife to some clueless guy her age. He reached out and raised his hand toward her chest. He reached out aiming for her chest but stopped just short before making contact. A strict voice snapped through the room, making everyone freeze for a second. Someone was definitely getting called out. Pa showed up out of nowhere and just let his energy loose. Instantly, all that pressure Peng Sang was holding over the place vanished. Peng Sang stumbled back, caught off guard, and started acting all respectful toward him. Inside, he was pretty annoyed, thinking the family head was always ruining the vibe. Out loud, he just brushed it off, acting like it was no big deal, and saying he'd only talked a bit because he recognized someone. Pa looked down at him with zero emotion, basically saying he'd be the one to figure out what mattered here. He pushed again, wanting the full story right then and there. Just started laughing like he couldn't hold it in anymore. The family head looked tense, clearly stressed out with the big event coming up. He spoke up, saying everyone could hear him, that the girl just wanted to know more about the pledge. He said he was just trying to help her out and told to back him up on it. Jinan lowered his head and awkwardly admitted it was true, barely getting the words out. Told Pa not to worry, said it was all cool, then dipped out of there. He handed Jin over and quietly let him know they'd pick up the chat later, since today wasn't the right time. After he finally dipped, Pa lets out a long breath, finally relaxing. He said sorry for how rude the elder had been, making it clear he meant it. In tried to brush off the apology, but Pa wasn't letting it slide. He made it clear they were gonna team up and that showing respect like this actually mattered. He looked over at and gave a quick bow. He said sorry about what the elder had said, knowing it was out of line. She nodded back and let him know she was good. Pa just sat there checking out without saying a word. He remembered she'd actually taken the top spot on Academy's entrance exam. In his mind, that meant her skills were seriously solid, and he figured she could end up being both a real challenger and maybe even a friend to his daughter. He said thanks, then glanced up to check what time it was. Showed up behind him, letting everyone know she was there. Pa pointed her out to and told them to say hi to each other. They both nodded at each other, introduced themselves, and kept it respectful. Noticed right away that this was the girl who topped the exam rankings. At the same time, spotted and gave him a look, realizing he was the sword flower everyone talked about. Pa checked in with his daughter to see if everything was set up, and she let him know it was all good. He took a quick look at the huge wolf in front of him. He had his hands tied up high and finally said it. This was the moment he'd been waiting for. It was official now, the wait was over. The moment came for the blood oaths. When it got dark, Pa headed out and started making his way up the stairs to the platform where the wolf was tied up. He just stopped doing it. Halfway up the stairs, he paused, spun back around, and got everyone's attention with a look. His voice echoed all over the courtyard. He genuinely thanked every brave comrade from Manhwa who showed up for this moment. When he showed off his powerful kai, a few guests just froze, totally silent, almost like they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Pa kept talking, making sure everyone remembered they'd all made a promise. He fought with his sword for what he thought was right and fair. He mentioned how people sometimes go off when things don't go their way. Up north, the apostles just tore everything up. Out east, barbarians started causing real problems. And over in the west, that demonic cult was going wild. While all this was happening, the Alliance, who was supposed to keep things under control, just kept losing strength every day. So he decided it was time to step up and make an announcement. From this moment on, they were locked in as one team, ready to keep holding it down for justice and balance like their crew always had. After that big promise, the guests went wild, cheering so loud you could barely hear anything else. They all kept shouting the clan name over and over, totally hyped up. The warriors started banging on the taiko drums. It was time for the blood oath ceremony to kick off. Took his time climbing the stairs, the sound of drum beats bouncing all around him. She got to the halfway mark and ran into her dad. He just told her to keep going. She gave a quick nod. He suddenly launched himself up and landed right on the top platform. He was there. She grabbed her sword. She shut her eyes and took her time pulling out the blade, thinking in her head that the sword belonged to her now. She gripped her weapon tight and sliced it through the air, totally focused. In her head, she promised herself that this was the moment she'd go all out and make proud. She snapped her eyes open and got straight into showing off some crazy sword moves. She moves with this smooth, almost effortless style, every step locked in and on point. Once she finished filling out her forms, she just stood there for a second, knowing the last part of the ceremony was about to start. She aimed her sword right at the wolf that was tied up in the center of the platform. She was ready to give everything she had for this last shot. She dashed ahead, pulling off the vast sky sword move like she'd practiced it 100 times. Her flow looked almost unreal, slicing through the air with that one clean strike totally locked in. She went in for the final blow, her sword just about to land on the wolf's neck, when suddenly the wolf, who everyone thought was done for, jerked back to life. Inside, a guy stood there, blood all over him, just grinning. Out of nowhere, a hand popped out from inside the wolf. Right when its blade was about to land on her neck, some dude showed up out of nowhere, shirtless, covered in blood, rocking a wolf headdress, and reached for her. Right as his hand was about to reach her, she looked straight at him. Out of nowhere, she remembered what her dad said earlier. Yule, the sword, she had to make sure nobody else got their hands on it. He wrapped his hand around her neck and just lifted her right off the ground, like she weighed nothing. Just froze, totally thrown off. Her brain was running wild trying to figure out what was going on. Someone really just came out of a wolf's stomach. That couldn't be real. She honestly wondered if she was dreaming or something. She started tearing up, struggling to wrap her head around what was happening. Then it hit her, the tightness in her throat wasn't just nerves, it was for real. But what mattered most right then, the holy sword was missing. She glanced forward and spotted the sword just floating there, ready to drop any second. He picked it up and he held the blade right up to her neck. She let out a groan and just stared at the knife touching her skin. Just stared him down, icy as ever. He let him know he was about to hit his pressure points, and if the guy tried anything, losing an ear would be the first thing on the list. All of it suddenly hit Yule, and she just started yelling at the top of her lungs. Her dad was on his way down the stairs. He snapped his head around as soon as he heard the noise. Down below, the other warriors started buzzing, some claiming they'd just seen a person come out of the wolf, while others brushed it off, saying it was just the wolf's insides. Meanwhile, Pa powered up and shot straight up. He could tell Yule was out of it, totally spaced out, and he started thinking about what might have gone down up there. Out of nowhere, his daughter's sword sheath came clattering down the stairs. Right away, he knew it was the case that held the holy sword. Suddenly, a loud voice came out from the platform up top, calling out the clan. Pa glanced up and spotted his daughter being held hostage. Panic hit him hard as he yelled out her name, realizing just how bad things had gotten. He started going off on, calling him out and telling him to let his daughter go right now. Started talking and let everyone know he had two things he wanted. Pa shut him down, demanding that the guy drop his daughter. Out of nowhere, another person popped up beside Pa and told him to chill for a sec. He wanted to hear what was saying. That was Pa started yelling at his dad, but just stayed chill, telling his son to slow down and think before jumping in. He reminded Pa that even after becoming the head of the family, he still hadn't figured out how to keep his cool. Also said that if really wanted her dead, things would gone down differently. He would jumped in without thinking if he could. Clearly, he was up there because he needed something. Gave a quick smirk, nodding at how sharp the old guy was. Just gave him a thankful look right after. Leaned in closer, locking eyes with Yule. He made it clear. If anyone tried to mess with him again, the girl would be the first one to get hurt. Pa stared up at his jaw clenched tight, eyes locked on target. Starts talking again, making it clear he's got two things he wants. First up, he says today's blood oath doesn't count since it wasn't fair from the jump. Everyone knew the clan as the backbone of the good guys. He's stuck in this trash deal, and that's exactly why the big mission can't move forward. Next, the guy who made the treaty has to go. If they bring him up to the altar, the girl gets out safe, no harm done. Pa put his hand up, waiting for the okay to say something. Gave him a quick nod. Pa stepped up and made it clear that the treaty needed a fair update, but taking out the person who actually made it. That just wasn't right in his book. Jumped in with a grin before he could even get his words out, basically telling him to chill and ask for steak before shutting it down. Peng Sang moved up from the crowd, calling out to from down below. People started calling him a fiend, wondering if he really believed the clan would actually fall for his smooth talk. Kept his cool and basically made it clear, if Peng pulled up, he'd let the woman go without messing with her. Snapped back, calling out for being wild and accusing him of coming up with some ridiculous hostage trade where he'd have to give up his martial arts. The whole thing sounded like pure nonsense. Looked kind of lost, honestly. He couldn't even remember telling anyone to stop using their martial arts. Peng Sang froze for a second, not really believing what he just heard. Just shrugged it off, saying he didn't need to hold back on his moves. He was confident he could just take the guy out without any special tricks. He told Peng to quit messing around and get up there, calling him Snake Eyes.
Lately, I've had a strong addiction to watching manhwa and manga recap videos. Every single day, I find myself binging one after another, losing hours and days doing absolutely nothing productive. And honestly, it's getting out of hand. So, maybe we can make these viral videos too. I mean, look at the views, the growth, the community these creators are building. It looks simple, right? But that's a trap. You go down this endless rabbit hole, spending money, losing sleep, hiring editors and writers from Fiverr and Upwork, and still feel like you've been robbed. Because don't forget how emotional the YouTube algorithm can be with making videos go viral. It's unpredictable, especially when the market's saturated, competition's relentless, and somehow other creators are dropping 10-hour videos daily while you're stuck trying to finish one. That's when I realized something had to change. So, I built the solution, the Webtoon Narrative Suite, a complete one-click system that handles everything from cropping, script narration, text-to-speech, image processing, and full video generation in one smooth process. Save money, reduce hours of work, and have a tool that only gives you straight results. Click on the link down below and experience it for yourself. And if you want even more tools to supercharge your YouTube recap journey, visit my Ko-Fi and Patreon pages where I drop weekly new tools designed to keep you ahead as AI continues to steal our jobs. So tap in now before you get left behind.